One of those there, one of these here. Hey everyone, how we doing? Welcome in, welcome in. Make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends to know the good stuff. Nope, sorry, wanted showman. I have not yet converted to Christianity. No, not yet. It hasn't happened yet. Well, oop. Hunter, I don't know why you'd request to join. Like, I don't know. I remember you. You're a troll. You better create like an alt account or something. Otherwise, I'm just gonna keep on not accepting your request, obviously. Like trivially. What? It's like obvious, I fear. Make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends to know that good stuff. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you are 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. You could also be like a deist, I guess. A deist would be fine too, but you know, finally, I asked that you have some reason to think that God exists so we could discuss it. Let's go to the very first guest. Hey, how's it going?
Hi, hello.
Yeah, how old are you?
I'm 24.
And what religion? What religion?
Hello?
Hello?
I told you Christianity. Yeah,
Okay.
do you hear me? I said Christianity.
In
Yeah.
fact, it cut out actually, but just calm down there. What makes you think that God
I'm
exists?
calm. I don't know why you're telling me to be calm. I mean, if we were face to face, I doubt that's the first thing out of your mouth is be calm.
Do you think if we were
But
face to
I'm
face,
fine.
you would stumble over your words like you just did? Anyway,
Even if
we
I
can
did,
move that
let's start
aside. I just want to know what makes you think that God exists.
you feel good looking the way you do, like your
I
face. Do you
do.
feel good about that?
I do. Yeah, my girlfriend loves me. Yeah. That's kind of all I
Yeah, but
need.
she loves every square inch of that big noggin you got and those
She
fucking
does.
ears.
She
that attach
does.
to your
Yeah.
fucking big dumb head. Yeah.
She does.
How tall are
Yeah.
you? How
But
tall are you?
whoa, I'm 6 foot. I don't think that's the route you want to go.
What are you talking about, Roberto?
That's the sound of you choking in my rhetorical dick. Do you want to give like some reason to think that God exists, or do you just
Holy
intend to
shit,
get your back
dude!
blown out?
Give me 7 seconds and I'll
Okay,
fucking
another
smash your face
stumble
into the fucking
over your
ground. Yeah, I'll rape
words.
you. I'll rape you, nigga. I'll rape you, nigga. What's up,
Okay.
nigga? You'll get raped.
Wow, that's pretty Christian, dude. That dude was a good Christian. Look at that. You know, I remember that one gospel where Jesus said, word for word, bar for bar, exactly what that guy said. Holy shit. What an insane crash out. Can't lie. I don't know. It was less than a minute, so or I think it was actually just like a bit over a minute. But, you know, I think that would probably be, maybe it's like shorts territory. Maybe you got to post that one to shorts or something. It was like an instant crash out. Debate Dean, I'm scared. Why would I debate Dean on what? We don't disagree on things. But make sure you're double tapping on that screen. How much is that in centimeters? It's like a fucking trillion centimeters or something. I don't know. I think it's like 180. I think it's slightly less than 180. No, it's slightly more than 180. Yeah. But Anyway, hey, if you want to debate the topic, if you think that God exists, or if you want to have like some embarrassing crash out, you're also welcome to request to join. You got to be 18 or older. You got to believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. Acceptably, you could also you could be like a deist. That's fine too. And then, I ask that you have some reason to think that God exists. Hey, how's it going?
How would you genuinely respond if I raped you
Hmm.
in your ass, you fucking
I'd
faggot?
probably
Like you
get
rape
pretty
kids.
sad,
Look like you rape kids.
Whoa, you've said multiple times that you're gonna rape me.
Kids.
That's pretty crazy projection coming from a person who said that he was literally going to do that to me. Wow, I really got into that guy's skin. Hey, how's it going? How old are you?
Hi. What makes you think that God isn't?
You gotta be 18 or older, bud. Hey, how's it going?
Oi, mate.
You gotta
I
be 18
sounded-
or older, bud. Jeez. I'm worried about the youth and what they're listening to. They're listening to people with alt accounts come up and tell me that they're gonna grape me. It's concerning. It's like the Elon Musk reply tweet, concerning. Yeah, I did all of that. But hey, listen, I currently have nobody serious requesting to join. So if you're 18 or older and you think that God does exist, feel free to request to join. We can have a discussion. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, how old are you?
I'm 16.
You gotta be 18 or older. Wow. I don't know. I'm worried about the youth, the things that they've overheard. We'll see. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to start yapping, and if I start yapping, there's no way to stop me. Hey, how's it going? Hello?
How's your day?
It's aight. How old are you?
Can you hear me?
Sounds like there's a tremendous
18.
delay.
I'm 18.
How old are you?
18?
Yeah, the delay's a bit too bad. Also, you don't sound 18. Yeah, it is indeed like the cap of the century, right? I don't know. Maybe I could yap for a little bit. What do I want to yap about? I've been thinking more, I'm thinking about the cosmological argument. This is known. So okay. Let me Oh, okay. Well, we can't have that, can we? Hey, what's up, Zeno?
Yo, what's up, Ian? Right quick, I don't know if you want to yap a little bit.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, well,
Sure. Yeah. So I'm probably gonna go get a coffee with Bruce in like 2 weeks. So
whoa.
yeah. He doesn't live too far from me. So I don't know if you want to like message me on Discord. Any questions you want to like ask specifically? Anything you want.
Gosh, I'm writing like a paper about the cosmological argument currently. But
Nice.
I've been focusing more on I've read pretty deep into the literature for the objection I want to make against the Kalam, but unfortunately I haven't read super deep into like the modal collapse literature for the like the contingency argument. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I have good questions.
Oh yeah. Okay. Sure. I was just kind of
But
saying.
yeah, I can for sure message you.
Okay, cool. I think my Discord is like Zeno, by the way, like all together. So
Sure.
if you wanna, I'll probably run the psychophysical with you in like a week or two,
Yeah.
if that's cool.
Yeah, that's chill.
But there's a few things like I don't know. Are you a like type A physicalist?
I have
'Cause
no
if you are-
idea. I have like zero stance on this.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's like epiphenomenalists. They have pretty good objections to it. So yeah, I don't know. That all that stuff's interesting, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of what I've been doing.
Yeah, I think I'm
What's your
probably a physicalist. I think that there's good reason. I think that I think the causal closure argument probably works. The argument that goes basically every physical effect has a physical cause. There are mental events that produce physical effects. Therefore, mental events are sorry, fuck. I
Right.
don't know why my brain is like processing. Therefore, mental events are physical is the conclusion there.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, I have an epiphenomenalist friend, and he's like, he actually kind of like, I don't know, his arguments are weird, but it's hard to refute because he's like, oh yeah, nobody feels actually like pain actually. And then he's like, if you just remember better, like, oh yeah, you'll remember the exact like pain if you just try harder. I'm like, I don't know.
That's like
Yeah, it gets
definitely
kind of
false. In fact, I was thinking about that exact thing because I was kind of exploring like a similar line of thought. Like maybe pain is literally just like the function. Maybe there's nothing that it's like to feel pain. Maybe it is just like something in the memories. But then I was like literally thinking about those thoughts, and then I accidentally like touched like the hot rack in my oven, and I actually sat there and like paid like really close attention to that pain. And indeed it's real, right? I remember it being like something very distinct from like just the feeling of pulling my hand back.
right. Yeah, that's kind of. I mean, like a few years ago, I got into like what's it called? I hydroplaned on, and I got into an accident. It was like way back when I first started driving, but I told him, I'm like, I remember the distinctions between like what I was thinking and the pain I was feeling. I don't know that I kind of went into a little debate with him there, but yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah. That's super cool that you're going to be meeting with Bruce. That's awesome. But I
Yeah,
have somebody who might be requesting to join.
cool,
So
cool, cool.
if I think of anything, I'll message you on Discord. But otherwise, yeah, it's great to talk to you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for letting me out.
Yep, absolutely. Hey, if you're in that guest request box, you got to be 18 or older. You got to believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. You could also be a deist. That's fine too. And finally, I don't know. I guess those are the criteria. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, how old are you? Oh, wait, there's like a horrible echo. Do you have headphones? I muted you for just a second because I can hear like the echo coming in. It's really bad. But do you have, if you got headphones, that would be just spectacular. And then unmute. I don't know.
Hello?
Yep. Do you have headphones?
Is it better now?
Yeah, much better. Oh, wait, no, it's not. It very much isn't. That's too bad. I don't know. I have nobody requesting to join other than that. Hey, I guess I'll make the plea one more time. If you're in that guest request box, if you're 18 or older, if you think that God is real, if you think that he's one of the things that does exist, feel free to request to join. If you don't think that he's one of the things that exist, don't request to join. It's the only criteria. Hey, how's it
Hello.
going? Yep.
Hello.
How old are you?
18, but I ain't want to come up here to debate. I just wanted to ask, wanted to know your view on the cosmological proof argument of God.
I
Like,
think
are
that-
you just now looking into it, or are you like, what are you doing with it?
wait, so two things. First, you said that you were 18, but also,
Yes.
what religion are you?
Christian.
Sure. Okay. So I've been familiar with the cosmological argument and responses to it for some time, but I'm working to develop a new response to it, or rather, like unify a response that's been leveled against different cosmological arguments and point out that they share like kind of the same underlying structure. So I think that the cosmological argument probably undermines the very conditions for it to get off the ground in the first place. So, for example, I think that in order to run the contingency argument, you need to have contingencies, and then you say that every contingency has a sufficient explanation for it. But, the ultimate sufficient explanation is necessary. And if it's a sufficient explanation for all of them, then they would be necessary. So
Yeah.
in that way, like there kind of just aren't contingencies. And the same thing is true for the Kalam. I mean, either God is eternally willing to create or he's not eternally willing to create. You know, if his act of creation begins to exist, then it requires a cause. And if it doesn't begin to exist, then the universe doesn't begin to exist. So
Right.
either God fails to stop the regress or, you know, God, you can't run like the Kalam basically because the universe doesn't begin to exist.
All right. But like, all right, what is the best argument of God like that you like somebody told you? Like that somebody argued against?
For God's existence?
Yeah, of his existence, yeah.
I think that there are forms of the fine-tuning argument that I don't think have like the best responses. I think that they probably have like sufficient responses. Maybe worst case scenario, I update my credence and think that theism is like slightly more probable than previously. But you know, it's only really for like the really good versions of fine-tuning.
Oh, all right. Okay. All right. That's really all I wanted to ask, really. Just wanted to see your view on that. All right.
Yep. Yeah. Hey, thanks for coming up. Appreciate you.
You too.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm going good.
Yeah. How old are you?
56.
And what religion?
Christian.
Yeah. What makes you think that God exists?
Because every time I pray, I know he's there because I get this really emotional surge.
Hmm. Yeah, you know, I think that there's just a good explanation for that. I mean, you know, it's kind of weird that everyone in every religion has this exact same feeling, but it gets, you know, a lot less weird when you realize that the part of the brain that's being activated is the part of the brain that's active during like auditory hallucinations. It's we just have like good reason to think that what's going on there isn't some actual interaction, but rather your brain is just assigning meaning to things. Or maybe you're feeling good about like the community that's present there.
Yeah, I'll take that. But the chat is being so rude to me.
Well, is there anything else? Okay. Hey, how's it going? Is it better?
Hey, is it better?
We'll see. Yeah. How old are you?
18.
When do you hear this?
Oh my God. Why is it doing that? It's echoing.
Okay. If you're in that guest request box, you got to be 18 or older. You got to believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. Hey, how's it going?
Hello?
Yep. How old are you?
25.
You're a bit quiet. Can you speak up?
Is this better?
Much better. Yeah. How old are you?
Okay. Yeah, I'm 25.
And what religion?
I'm not religious. I just think God exists.
Which one? Or I guess like what properties do you assign to him?
The omni properties.
Okay, sure. That's fine. Yeah. What makes you think that God exists?
I think some forms of evidential arguments motivates his existence.
Okay.
Such as I think psychonomic harmony or fine-tuning works.
Okay.
Certain forms of fine-tuning.
We could do either of those. Which one do you want to talk about?
We can do psychonomic harmony.
Sure. Do you want to lay out the argument?
Yeah, 1 second. Yeah, so the argument is basically the idea that there seems to be an effective mapping between our cognitive states and that of the external world, such of which there seems that it produces these valuable things such as collaboration, agency, relationships, so on and so forth. And I would say something like, you know, given that God would be some value selector under the broad design hypothesis, it wouldn't be crazily surprising that he had this in mind when creating the universe. And thus, like, I would say something like this would be unsurprising evidence given the kind of God that I'm proposing exists, opposed to that of naturalism, assuming naturalism is value indifferent.
Sure. So I think the problem is that I think natural selection just provides a totally reasonable explanation for why we're able to do things like, I don't know, have agency and form and cooperate with other people. Like these things are just good for survival and reproduction in many cases.
Well, how would you have natural selection if it wasn't already true that your cognitive states map effectively to that of the external world?
Yeah, because natural selection took place even before there were any cognitive states at all. Natural selection is pre-cognitive state. In fact, it's the thing that cognitive states emerged from. They're the very first thing were bacteria, and these certainly don't have cognitive states.
Oh, I don't grant that we evolved from single cellular organisms. So I'm very skeptical about that.
Yeah. So if that's the stance that you take, then there's just going to be like tons and tons of genetic evidence that weighs against your position.
What exactly is the genetic evidence that shows that we evolved from single cellular organisms?
If you want a good one, I know that like a pretty trivial one is the fact that the DNA that's present in our nucleus is different from the DNA that's present in our mitochondria, indicating that there was a consumption of the mitochondria by a different cell that accounts for the fact that they have two different types of DNA. And keep in mind, them having two different types of DNA is nothing but harmful. It's like nothing but like a total detriment towards the overall cell, because it needs to waste a fuck ton of resources communicating between the two individual pieces. So that would demonstrate that there was some sort of, there must have been like a single cell that was like autonomous that then evolved into us.
Well, if you have the resources, I'd be glad if you could send it to me, because
Yeah.
I'm skeptical about those sorts of things.
I'm sure there's like a Wikipedia page about this exact topic. Mitochondria consumed by cell. Okay, yeah. There's a section on the Wikipedia page titled Origin. So the Wikipedia page for mitochondria, there's a section titled Origin and Evolution that would talk about this.
Origin and evolution. Okay, I'll go look into that. But do you have assuming that like we don't have any, there isn't some fact of the matter that we did evolve from singular cellular organisms. What would be your response?
I don't know. I mean, so setting aside, like, let's say that I didn't know, if it's not the case that we evolved from single cell organisms, well, I mean, given our anatomy, it's probably then all of evolution is false. I think that would be like such a radically different world that it's hard for me to even have a conclusion about that. Maybe best case scenario, or maybe rather worst case scenario, I could still hold to naturalism and be like an axiarchist and just hold that the world is disposed towards goodness. So if indeed this psychonomic harmony is a good thing to have, then the world could just produce this via its disposition towards goodness.
So you would say it would be making sense for you to concede naturalism? And
No,
axiarchism?
that would be a naturalist view.
No, axiarchist is not a naturalist view.
It
'Cause
definitely
naturalism-
is.
Naturalism is value indifferent.
No, that's not true. Naturalism just holds that there are no supernatural things.
So yeah, that it would be that, yeah, from that there wouldn't be some sort of disposition towards value. Axiarchism would say something like, the reason why things exist is because it's valuable for those things to exist, or it's good for those things to exist.
Yeah.
Right. So from that you can infer that, that there would be valuable things in the world. Now, if you were to say, well, naturalism is just the view where, there are no supernatural entities, or entities fall within causal closure, and and there's natural explanation. Things follow within that of the natural laws. Well, it's just unclear as to how you're inferring that there are valuable things.
Yeah, because so what the Axiarchist wants to say, in my understanding, what the Axiarchist wants to say is that value is like fundamental to reality. That there's like a fundamental disposition towards value, which then gives rise to all valuable states of affairs.
Right. That's what naturalism. No, sorry, that's what Axiarchism says. Right.
Yeah, and if you want like a person who defends naturalism, who states explicitly that Axiarchism is naturalistic, Paul Draper's new book on the problem of evil, he gives like an evidential argument for the problem of evil, and the way that he sets priors involves going through various naturalistic hypotheses, and Axiarchism is one of the ones that he lists as being a naturalistic hypothesis.
Okay, so maybe it might be just a verbal dispute then
Mhm.
over what he means by naturalist. Okay, but okay, that's fine then. If you're just going to adopt Axiarchism, then I would probably just criticize the idea of value properties being mind independent.
I think that there might be like plausibility to that. Although then that seems to make God's decision to create arbitrary. If ultimately his values derive from his like agency or something, then you can just kick the question back to why does God value these things as opposed to some other ones?
Well, you can probably say something like, well, you can be unclear. You can say that the reasons for why he chooses them can be unclear, but rather the ones that he chose is plausible given the properties that he has.
Sure. So do you think that the property that he has of being like maximally valuable is derivative from his own mind?
I don't know what you're asking me.
You said all value is mind dependent. So
No. I don't make any claims about like whether value is mind dependent or mind independent.
oh, then
I'm
if
saying Axiarchism would entail that value is mind independent.
oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, so what would be the problem with that? You could even frame it as like a dilemma. Either it's possible for value to be mind independent, in which case Axiarchism is a viable possibility, or it's not possible for value to be mind independent. It's not possible that value, that is mind independent, in which case that means that God's value would be mind dependent.
Okay. I guess supposing that value is mind dependent, I would probably just give my same response, which is that he just has sufficient reasons, although those reasons are unclear. They're not really fleshed out reasons, as in we couldn't fully know them. But I would say it would be plausible. They wouldn't be unsurprising that he would select this particular thing, given the properties he has, which is he's all loving, all powerful, all knowing, so on and so forth.
Mhm. But doesn't all of his reasons for action derive from his values? And then those are like strictly mind dependent?
Yeah.
So then it seems like God could value literally anything he wants.
Sure, he could value anything he wants.
So then it's not clear at all why we would have any expectations of literally anything.
Well, just because he could value anything he wants doesn't mean he has the power to actualize anything he wants.
Mm-hmm.
Well, supposing power we mean by the classical theistic notion of power, which is they kind of take it or assume that God's power is coercive. I don't think God's power is coercive.
So I think the problem you run into is then your model of God is one that's all powerful and all knowing, but a God that's just all powerful and all knowing doesn't make any predictions about what the world is going to look like.
No,
You need to
I
have
believe
like all
I believe
goodness
he's
in
also-
there in order to make like specific judgments.
No,
But
no,
of course,
I
then
believe he's all good.
goodness is like totally arbitrary.
No, I believe he's all good.
Mhm.
I'm saying he could value anything he wants. I'm saying that that's separate from can he actualize anything that he values? Can he actualize whatever he values?
Yeah.
It's like, but the answer is no.
Yeah. So I agree, right? If God valued square circles, that he wouldn't be able to actualize square circles. But there's nothing that would predict what God will or won't value in this hypothesis, which means that we have no reason to think that God would create
Why
anything
would
in
there be no
particular.
prediction? Why would there not be a prediction?
Yeah, insofar as you're claiming that God can value like literally anything that he wants. So at that point, what God values, there's no reason to expect him to value, I don't know, squared circles as opposed to humans, as opposed to, arrays of electrons.
But that wouldn't matter, since even if he could value anything, he already accepted that he can't actualize everything that he values. So there's going to be a constraint upon the things that he can use his power to actualize the things that he values.
Yeah, I
So
totally
you
agree with
can-
that. That
you
just doesn't
can-
interact with the
you
argument.
can generate some sort of, at least some plausible expectation of the things that that would come about given his values,
Mhm.
even if he could value anything.
Yeah, but the question is, what fixes his values? It sounds like you're saying that God's values are fixed seemingly arbitrarily. So there's no explanation, there's no reason on this view to think that God would value humans in psychophysical harmony or, psychonomic harmony as opposed to electrons in an array or squared circles or nothing at all.
Well, no, because like his power is persuasive, so that would be fixing the things that he values. Since
Yeah.
that obviously since he doesn't have coercive power, meaning that he can't just force some states of affairs to happen. If its power is persuasive, it means it would be in lines with the goals of secondary causation, creaturely freedom, so on and so forth.
But why
in
does he
which-
value those things? What fixes that value?
so when you say what fixes that value,
Like what
are you
grounds
saying
it?
what constrains it or what grounds it?
Yeah, like what grounds it?
I think those sorts of things are primitive.
Oh, sure. So you don't think that it requires like dependence on a mind?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Then axiarchism's on the table. If you think that things like values can be primitive and not
as in
further grounded.
it's just a primitive. It's just a primitive value of his mind.
Sure. Well, I mean, if you're saying that it's not further grounded, then it's not clear why I couldn't just say that the universe at its foundation has value.
I mean, you could, but the question would be a dispute on priors, because sure, that would probably predict the relevant datum, but the question would be, okay, does that hypothesis have an equal prior to my hypothesis, or does it have more of a prior to my hypothesis? So that would be the dispute.
Yep. Well, so axiarchism being a form of naturalism requires one fewer category. So you believe in a God who has like some disposition towards goodness, whereas I believe in a universe that has like a disposition towards goodness. So I've simply taken away this unneeded entity.
Why would we prioritize ontic simplicity here over other forms of theoretical virtues?
I'm not saying that this is the only theoretical virtue. I'm saying that it's a theoretical virtue. What's a theoretical virtue that you think your hypothesis would have over axiarchism?
Probably I would say something like explanatory scope.
What do you think
unification.
that explains that mine wouldn't?
I think what it would explain is the kinds of relation that we have with that of the universe.
Why?
Yeah, it seems that when we understand relationships, it seems that that sort of thing is agential. And it seems that when people are talking about some sort of God or something responsible for the universe, it seems that there's some sort of connection between us and to whatever that is. Now, I don't know what it means to have some sort of relationship with something that isn't agential. It seems that historically speaking, or just tracking wise, that every form of relationship that we've had seems to track with that of agents, either through humans or non-human animals.
Do you think that in your hypothesis, would agential relationships be good?
Yeah.
Well, then it's unclear why the axiarchist can't just say, well, agential relationships are good, so it gives rise to agential relationships.
Oh, because the value properties aren't agential.
Why would they need to be?
With the problem, because like I said before, that the value tracks between relationships between agents,
Why?
right? If you're saying there's value that tracks relationships with a non-agent, I mean, that's a deviance from the norm that we see.
Okay, I mean, you're positing like an immaterial mind. That would also be a deviation from the norm.
Well, no, I didn't say the mind is immaterial.
Is God material?
I'm silent on that.
Okay, well, either he's material or immaterial. You know, if
Well,
he's material,
I'm
then
silent
presumably he
because-
can't be the foundational entity.
Well, I'm silent on whether he's material or immaterial because those kinds of terms aren't really fleshed out.
We could say like made of particles.
Yeah, I don't think that's enough to make an answer, to give you an answer.
Well, how about I just give you the dilemma? Either God's made of particles or he isn't. If God's made of particles, then he's not the ultimate fundamental being. And, you know, if he's not made of particles, then we have really good priors against him.
Yeah, I would just like would want an argument for the first premise.
That God wouldn't be ultimate if he's made out of particles?
No, the disjunct.
That
which is
either God is made out of particles or not made out of particles?
Yeah.
Yeah, either a proposition is true or its negation is true. You know, if either a proposition is true or its negation is true, and, you know, God is made out of particles as a proposition, then either God is made out of particles or God is not made out of particles.
No, as in, like, why would those be the only two
The
options?
law of excluded middle?
No, like, as
Do
in,
you
like,
reject
why
the
would-
law of excluded middle?
No. What I'm saying here is that it doesn't seem that, you know, him being made out of particles would entail that he's material, is what I'm getting at. That's the kind
I'm
of issue.
stipulating that that's what I mean when I say material.
Then I'm not really sure. Well, I'm not really sure then. If that's what you're saying by material, then I think that's deviant from what other people mean by, or at least what they seem to mean by material in the literature. I think they go beyond with just saying particles.
Name 3 physicalists.
Sorry.
Name 3 physicalists.
I believe his name is Kim.
Kim.
Kim is one. Kite. I think Kite is another one.
Kite? K-I-T-E?
Kite. Who's a third one I can reference?
Doesn't, not that I can find. I can't find a kite. Are you thinking of Kit Fine?
I think that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, I have no
I think
idea
I
if
would-
Kit Fine is a physicalist. He very well might be.
I believe Kit Fine is a physicalist because he, I think he is because he gives like really strong motivations for causal closure and stuff like that.
No, he's not a physicalist.
Not a physicalist.
Yeah, his main
What's his-
thing, of course, is I'm pretty sure his main thing is like essences.
I mean, you can hold to essences if you're a physicalist.
No, I know you
Sure.
can, but I'm Googling it. It doesn't seem like Kit Fine is a physicalist. Listen,
hold on a
I
second.
mean,
have
I guess
my
like,
notes.
you know, I'm like knowledge checking you for a reason, which is that you said that people don't define material in the literature to mean something like made out of particles, but they definitely do. That's
No,
in fact
I
like
never said that they don't define. I said like what they mean by the term, like without it verbally being explicit about it. What I'm saying is that I think they say more than just particles. I think they add other things,
okay.
and also it's very unclear like what it means for something. Like to me, like when I read the literature around physicalism versus non-physicalism, and what it means for something to be material or whether something is not material, it seems that these people are all using different definitions of the term. Whether you're an idealist or whether you're some neutral monist, they all seem to be using material differently. So I genuinely don't know what they mean by material.
I mean, that very well could be, but I'm stipulating for you what I mean by it. Every mind that we've ever encountered has been made out of particles, or sorry, it's been connected to a brain, causally connected to a brain that's made out of particles. That's probably the true thing. So we just have really low priors in the existence of God, a mind that's not connected to a brain made out of particles.
It just well, I think it could just be true that God has both. God is both.
God is both what?
Both made of particles and not made of particles.
I take that to be a contradiction.
In one sense. In one sense he is made of particles, in another sense he's not.
What's the sense that he's made out of particles, and what's the sense that he's not?
In the sense that there's some sort of relation between that of him and the things that are made of particles.
That's total, utter gibberish, right? That's like for sure, definitely false. By this logic, you would literally say that minds themselves are made out of particles, as opposed to just like brains. Like, I don't know, you'd probably have to say at that point that like space-time is made out of particles because it has a relation to particles, and that's what you mean by made out of particles. It's just like bearing some relation to it.
Well, no, I take the relation to be causal.
Yeah, like a causal relation. You could hold that there's a causal relation between, I don't know, space-time and particles.
No, I don't take space-time to be causal, though. How we understand space-time is not that it's causal.
Well, certainly there are things that interact with it causally. Like, for example, when you accelerate something to a specific speed, it experiences less time. So that seems to be doing some sort of work with
It
like
also
the
depends
space-time
upon-
itself.
It also depends on your view of time as well, your ontology of time.
What's the ontology of time where what I said isn't true?
What I'm talking about is that there's some causal relation.
Yeah,
and
but what's
it would-
the ontology of time where there wouldn't be something like relativity of simultaneity, where the things that are accelerated close to the speed of light don't experience less time?
No. I'm not saying that's false. When I'm saying what that might be false is that that there is a causal relation between some entity and that of a time.
Hmm.
That's what I'm saying.
But that seems true, right? When things travel at close to the speed of light, they experience less time.
Okay, so by less time, what do you mean there?
Just that the speed that it would have taken, or the like if you compare the clocks that are in two reference frames, one traveling at close to the speed of light and one traveling at not close to the speed of light, the clock, more time will have passed on the clock and the reference frame traveling not close to the speed of light. If I climbed into my rocket ship and zoomed around the solar system at close to the speed of light and then came back on Earth and we compared our clocks, my clock on board my ship to your clock here on Earth, more time would have passed for your clock. If you're off the app, I can't hear you. You gotta return to the app. Okay, he tried his best. Whoa, we have hella supers. Make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all the good stuff. Amir Dazdarek, thanks so much for the cool Corey membership. Appreciate you. That's super cool. Dr. Fudge, thanks so much for the super chat. We will indeed know them by their fruits. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Animating Dreams, thanks so much for the super chat. No, don't do that. I thought we were having a nice debate. True. Based. Real. GameCube Daniel, thanks so much for the 14-month Twitch subscription. Appreciate you. Mikopo, thanks so much for the 5 cool Corey memberships for the YouTube community. Congratulations, anyone who received one. Amir, thank you so much for the cool Corey memberships. Appreciate that. Webster, thanks so much for the super chat. Isn't Grape of a Man a sin on more than one level? Yeah, obviously. But, you know, you'll know them by their fruits. Oh, no, I don't get the reference. Sorry. Ichigo, thanks so much for the super chat. Sorry you deal with narcissist clans. Hey, well, I appreciate it. Your $2 makes it all worth it. I appreciate you. Alex Nero, thanks so much for the super chat. Do you think the whole being more ontologically fundamental than parts is viable? Every time I look for defenses for it, it seems arbitrary or gibberish. Yeah. I think it depends on what you take all of reality to be, but yeah, like if it's just the universe, it definitely seems like the total quantum system is more fundamental than the individual quantum systems that comprise it. There are properties that the whole has that don't supervene onto anything at like the lower level quantum systems. I think that it depends. I don't think this is true for like literally every ontology, but it's for sure true for some. Whoa, Larry, holy shit. Thanks so much for the $50. That's pretty incredible, Larry. Let's get a big W for Larry. Thanks for bringing the light. Thank you for funding me bringing the light. That's really incredible. I seriously appreciate that. Thank you so much. Let's get a big W for Larry. From the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate you. I don't know, like I seriously couldn't do this without you. Okay. What do I have next? Okay, cool. Okay. All right, let's go to the very next guest. If you're in that guest request box, you got to be 18 or older. You got to believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. That'll go to the next guest. What's up? How's it going, Joe?
Hey, I joined not too long ago. You can hear me, right, or no?
Yep. Yeah, how old are
Okay.
you?
I'm 23.
And what religion?
Christian.
Yeah, what makes you think that God exists?
Yeah, I'm gonna get into like the contingent argument with which I'm sure you exhaust. I just wanted to apologize when I came on like a month or two ago. I was talking about like knowledge, and I was trying to talk about transcendental idealism, but I hadn't read it in a while. That's what I was referring to, if you remember the conversation.
I see, sure. But yeah, yeah. So what is it that makes you think that God exists?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess I can give the syllogism, or like the contingent argument, so we can just talk about the
Yeah,
contingent
do you want to,
argument.
for the audience's sake, would you mind laying out the syllogism?
Sure. It's something to the effect of everything is necessary or contingent. Premise 2 might have to be granted, but like the universe is contingent. Contingent things have no explanatory power. Explanatory power needs to be necessary or come from necessary things, not contingent things, because you'll have this endless chain of contingent things. Explanation, therefore, needs to be necessary. Since the universe is contingent, the universe needs a necessary explanation. This necessary explanation is God. It's something like that.
Yeah, okay. So there's kind of a problem here, which is that like one of the premises that you gave, and it's not typically in the contingency argument, but it's just obviously false. The idea that contingent things don't have explanatory power. I mean, I pick this up, I place this down. I've now explained where my keys are. I've transmitted explanatory power to like the position of the keys. But you want to say that I'm contingent? I mean, a lot of contingent things definitely have explanatory power, but we can move past that.
I think the phrasing should be, I forget what it is exactly, but like absolute explanatory power, in the sense that like if a contingent thing does another contingent thing, that contingent thing lacks explanatory power because it's contingent on something else, which is also contingent, which lacks explanatory power, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. So you're just saying that contingent things need explanation.
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
Okay. The problem is that this leads to necessitarianism. Let's say that we took like the set of every single contingent thing, everything that could have existed, could have not existed. We have all of them. There needs to be an explanation for this set, but it can't be within the set itself. It needs to be outside of the set. And it would need to be a necessary thing. But of course, if you have a necessary thing and it's sufficient for all of these contingent things, then all these contingent things would just be necessary. Let's say God's act of creation is necessary and it necessitates the universe. Well, then the universe is necessary.
Sure. I haven't gone down this, but I'm not positive I believe the act of creation is necessary.
Sure. So probably the key
I
question.
can give you a syllogism for that as well if you like.
That's fine. But then the key question is just going to be, you know, God's intention to create the universe. Are they necessary or contingent?
Contingent, yeah.
Okay, well
Probably.
then it would need an explanation, and God wouldn't be able. You couldn't have a personal explanation for that because it would be pre God's intention.
It would be pre God's intention.
It would have to be something other than. It would need to be something that's like at a deeper level in the chain of explanations than God's intention itself. So God's intentions, no action from God could explain this.
I might be a little confused what you're saying right
Okay.
now.
What do you think explains God's intention to create or not create?
God's intention necessary, or sorry, God's nature is necessary. I'm trying not to give a syllogism, but like I'm
That's
answering
fine.
the question. God's nature is necessary. God's will is identical to his nature. God has a necessary will, but this necessary will doesn't entail a necessary like effect or object. If that makes sense.
You for sure definitely don't want to say that. Otherwise, like the circumstances, you'll have like God wills creation, and then there's some circumstances where creation doesn't come about. So he would just be like plainly not all powerful. Like God would have failed to create. If God has a necessary will to create, like in all possible
No, I don't. Sorry,
worlds.
that's not what. When I said will, I wasn't saying will. Like, his will necessarily follows from his nature.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean creation necessarily follows from his will.
Didn't you say that you think that his nature is identical to his will?
Yeah, I may have misspoke but maybe not. I might still be saying the same thing. What I'm saying is his will necessarily follows from his nature.
Yeah, sure. So his nature is necessary. His
Yes.
nature necessitates
His
the will to be a certain way.
Yes.
Okay. And that way includes creation.
Yeah, but I'm not sure it had to include creation.
Then it wouldn't be necessary.
His will, which is identical to his nature in this regard, we can say it's like to do or to be all good.
So
But yeah,
let me
okay.
let me throw this up on a notepad to help. So
Sure.
okay, we have God's nature is necessary.
Mhm.
God's nature necessitates God willing creation.
No, I don't agree with that point.
Oh, okay, sure. So then you would say that
It necessitates his will.
yeah,
Or
the
his
fact that
will.
it exists, but what necessitates, or I guess like what explains the fact that God wills creation?
Yeah, I'm not sure we have epistemic access to this, but it would be something like, I know what your critique is going to be already, but it's something like it follows from his nature, or sorry, it follows from his nature
The
that he
connection
creates.
Sorry, the connection between God's nature and God's will, is that connection necessary or contingent?
Necessary.
Sure. Okay. So God's nature necessitates that his will
Wait,
will
sorry,
include
could you
creation.
I might have answered that wrong.
Yeah.
God's will
so-
is contingent on his nature.
Yeah. So I'm asking, basically, if God, I don't know, if God has the will that he does,
Mhm.
then he will, or okay, wait, his will includes creation.
No, I
So-
don't agree with that.
But isn't this contingently true?
Um,
Isn't this possible but not necessary?
oh, sorry. Yeah, I might have just assumed you were going to say necessitates creation. Sorry. Yes, that it includes creation.
Yeah, sure. So then
Yeah.
if you're saying that this one is contingent, then there would need to be an explanation for this. Like the
The
connection
explanation
between
would
them.
be his nature. It would be his nature.
Yeah. And that's necessary, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we could put it like this. If God has the nature that he does, then the connection between God having the nature that he does, or sorry, this should say nature. Although that's what I was saying verbally, so it's probably fine.
Mhm.
Then all of this stuff, like the connection between God's nature and his will, would follow. Is this
Follow is yeah.
No, is this connection, is that connection necessary or contingent?
Contingent.
Okay, so there's going to be a problem here, which is that this is self-explanatory. That specifically, this proposition is identical to this proposition. Or sorry, it's actually this entire proposition is just identical to the proposition that's highlighted. These are the same proposition because you have
Wait, sorry. You're
P
saying that proposition is the same as itself?
you have P implies Q, and that's just identical to P implies Q.
Well, yeah, so this was my issue before. It depends what you mean by includes creation. It
Just
doesn't
that
like
God's going to will
P
to
doesn't
create this.
P doesn't
world.
entail creation though. That's my argument.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's what I'm saying can't happen.
Why not?
Otherwise, it would be contingent and then require an explanation.
I said it was contingent on his nature.
Yes, but then when I ask you the connection itself, what is the connection itself contingent upon? You said his nature again. You're saying if God has the nature that he does, then
Mhm.
if God has the nature that he does, then his will includes creation.
Mhm.
So the explanation for P implies Q is P implies Q.
Yeah, what do you need an explanation for? Why his nature contingently causes creation?
Yeah.
Do you want this in like a philosophical way, or can I just say it normally?
You can say it normally.
Sure. Something to the effect of creation is good and God's nature is necessarily good.
Is creation necessarily good?
So in all possible worlds, does creation? Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then we reach a modal collapse there too. So
Right. You're going to argue that if it's necessarily good, God necessarily had to
Yeah.
create. Right?
yeah,
Yeah. My argument is that like, and this was what I assumed your objection was going to be. Do you want me to let you write?
Yeah, let me formalize it as necessarily good. God's nature is to do the good thing
Mm-hmm.
necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It seems to follow from that God creates necessarily.
Yeah. So I guess we would have to define a few things that are probably tedious and irrelevant, but like what does good mean in this scenario?
We could just say it's like the thing that God has like some total reason to do.
Sure, but that doesn't really answer the question. Well, it depends on what your belief about like where goodness comes from, whether it's good because whatever. Sure, let's say God, but God has to have some form of measuring like what is good still. And for argument's sake, let's say God's like a utilitarian, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Do you think if you're an omniscient being, you can be a utilitarian and recognize that two actions have the same exact amount of good?
Sure.
So doesn't that mean that creation doesn't necessarily follow because it's possible another action could have had the same amount of good?
But then you have a bit of a problem there, which is that then God's decision between world 1 and world 2 is contingent, and there would need to be an explanation for that.
I don't understand why that's a problem. It feels like the explanation is his necessary nature.
Okay.
Maybe I'm missing something.
Is that a sufficient explanation for it?
Oh, you're asking why is it not arbitrary?
No. Is God's nature a sufficient explanation for why he chose the world that he did?
I think so.
Okay. Well, then this becomes like way easier. If God has the nature, we'll say God having the nature that he does is sufficient for creating this world that he created.
Mm-hmm.
Necessarily, God has the nature that he does. And then it just follows from like pretty basic modal logic that necessarily
God
creates this world that he created.
I'm confused why that necessarily follows still.
So the inference rule that's happening here is necessarily P
P then Q,
implies
but I don't
Q.
agree. I don't agree with that though.
Therefore, to say that it's sufficient means that necessarily P implies Q.
Oh, then I don't believe. Sorry, I didn't know that. I don't think it's sufficient. Though.
Okay, then you don't have a sufficient explanation for this.
Maybe not. Can you define sufficiency? Maybe I just don't understand.
Sufficient just means that in all worlds where the like if part of it is true, the then part of it will also be true.
Oh yeah, I don't. Yeah, obviously I don't believe in that.
Yep. So when we're speaking of like a contingency having a sufficient explanation, there needs to be like some set of facts that necessitate that thing. Otherwise, it's not a sufficient explanation.
When we're talking about contingency having a sufficient explanation, what we're saying is there needs to be some set of necessary facts that. What was the last part?
There needs to be some set of necessary facts that necessitate the contingency, or just like facts in general. Like, for example,
Wait, sorry, that feels circular wouldn't be the right word, but it feels like you're implying the conclusion within your definition. What you're saying is contingent things don't exist because they're necessary.
well, that is the implication. This is indeed why the contingency argument fails, because the principle, the explanatory principle that every contingency requires a sufficient explanation, it entails that there just aren't any contingencies.
Or that there aren't sufficient explanations.
Yeah.
And if I'm willing to conclude that, like, because of our epistemic access, we don't have access to the sufficient explanation of why God created, I don't know how that would lead to the universe being necessary.
We don't need to know what it is. The principle commits you to saying that there is one. Like, one must exist.
Okay, I see. Can I try and steelman your argument to see if I'm understanding it right? Your argument is essentially that if we have like a bunch of contingent things, I'm arguing, like Joe is arguing that they must come from a necessary thing. But for the necessary thing to have any explanatory power, it must necessarily create the contingent things.
Not really. Just for it to be a sufficient explanation, you're going to need some set of facts that necessitate the fact. That's what an explanation is like a set of facts that necessitate some further fact.
And why would my facts about God's goodness not... Wait, sorry. You did say what I said at the end there. You said some set of facts necessitate.
That's what an explanation is. Like a complete explanation.
Okay. I don't know if I agree with that.
You don't agree that a full explanation for why a thing explains its existence?
No, I do. I'm confused on why I didn't give a full explanation.
Okay, because if you give a full explanation, if you have... Okay, you have
Are you
God's
just saying it's impossible to give a full
God's necessary nature explains fully explains why
then I'm just saying
God
it's necessary.
chose to create, then God's act of creation is necessary.
Interesting. And if I say that it doesn't explain it sufficiently, then I'm saying nothing. Yeah.
What happens then is that the contingency argument fails because the explanatory principle is false. The explanatory principle is that every contingency requires a sufficient explanation. It's the principle of sufficient reason.
Wait, I feel like I'm circling, and I want to apologize.
That's okay.
I'm still confused why a sufficient explanation is the same as entailing something. It can be sufficiently explained that God creates because it's a good thing to create, and it necessarily follows from God's nature that he does a good thing, but it doesn't necessarily follow that God does this good thing.
So, okay, does God do like the most good thing?
I'm not sure, actually. Probably. I think so.
Yeah. So, okay, let's say that God does the most good thing just by his nature.
Wait, sorry, I don't want to be a jerk, or like, when we say most good, I'm going to disagree with that premise because I'm not sure there is a single most good thing.
Oh, well, that seems like a totally separate blender, which is that now God's decision to create is like totally arbitrary.
Yeah,
Like
no,
if
I know.
there's
That's
just
where I
like
thought you were gonna. That's where I thought
yeah.
you were gonna. You conceded this when I said the utilitarian question, and
Mhm.
I thought you were gonna go to arbitrariness, but you didn't.
Yeah.
Like the reason I brought up utilitarianism is because there's could have been two worlds which we don't have epistemic access to, which are equally good in God's eyes. So then it seems like God arbitrarily chose to create, which is why I asked you earlier if that's what you're going with.
So okay. Two worlds, both equally good.
Yeah, I do have a degree, Josh.
Let's say that they're the most good.
That's kind of
Just to help simplify things.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
so
Okay.
necessarily
Or-
God is all good.
Mhm.
Necessarily, if God is all good, then he always selects the most good option. If we're saying that these are necessarily the most good worlds, then he's going to necessarily select one or the other. But then you might want to say like the decision to select one over the other is contingent. But then if you're saying every contingency needs an explanation, you need some explanation
Could
for
you
why
write
he
this down just so I don't have to
yeah,
remember,
yeah,
if you
yeah.
don't
That's
mind?
fine.
I'm gonna forget.
Okay, so
Also, some theists do disagree with P2.
that necessarily if God is all good, then he always selects the most good option.
There's no point in me saying it, but yeah, some think that if God's all good, he just doesn't do any wrong or bad. Which
Okay.
would be different.
Well, then you could. So this has a problem with it, which is that there's a better God, the one that does the most good action. So then he wouldn't
Is
be the
this-
most good being.
That's the best imaginable man argument, more or less.
Which I don't know what that one is.
I could be saying it. It's like if you can imagine a person that's like the best person ever.
Oh no, no. Well, actually, kind of. It's kind of like that. But typically, what's described to God is that God is a being who is maximally valuable. But you know, if God is maximally valuable, but then there's a God that's more valuable than him because he did a better thing, well, then that God isn't maximally valuable, actually.
But then you're posing that two gods exist.
It's
Like,
it's
then
like
one of
a
them
like a
just-
theoretical God. Like
Yeah, but
if
one of them
God
wouldn't be God
created
anymore. Then just one of them
yeah,
wouldn't be
yeah.
God.
But you would say you'd put it as conditional. If God created this, then he would be
I
more
don't even agree with
valuable
this
than a
point.
God
Yeah, I
that
don't even-
created that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I just
Sure.
you would have
Okay.
to get me to concede that both gods exist.
So, well, no, because it's a hypothetical. It's like an if then.
Yeah,
Sure.
I wouldn't change
So,
my
necessarily, if God always selects the most good option, and necessarily both of these most good worlds are equally good, then God's choice
is arbitrary.
is contingent, or God's choosing 1/2 is contingent. But then by the explanatory principle, if God chooses 1/2, there needs to be an explanation for that.
Yeah.
What would explain that?
Oh, because you're saying his nature doesn't explain it itself.
Yeah.
I haven't. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go for it.
I haven't read like the all possible worlds or whatever the contingent necessary. What's the writing called? Where the contingent necessary frameworks come from?
I'm
Doesn't
not sure that there's is this like some
Dr.
Lewis
Prince references it.
like modal realism?
I think it's called something else. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
I don't know what David Lewis's book on the plurality of worlds. I don't know. Where does which book
that sounds right.
Creates possible world semantics? Carnap. Interesting.
Sorry, are you waiting for me or are you still looking at text to
I'm
face?
like looking this up.
Sure, no worries. Also, you are like the most good faith like debater on YouTube.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate that.
Or I'm on TikTok, but yeah, like, bro, I try and watch like Christian debates. They are so bad faith. It's like I watch more atheist debates than Christian.
That's I don't know. I mean, I'm sure. Well, I don't know. There are like some good faith Christian debaters. Like
so not
I
on
like
TikTok, in my opinion.
I like I think Bot for Blood is pretty good. I'm a
who
big
it
Bot
is.
for Blood fan. I think the best faith interlocutor is of course Raw Soul or Q-Top. No,
Oh, yeah,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Of course.
No,
He's
but I think Bot by Blood is pretty good.
I don't know Bot by Blood. I only really watch William Craig and Alex O'Connor. But
Sure.
obviously Alex O'Connor isn't Christian.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
he's actually the one where I got this argument from and started reading on it because he said it's like the strongest. Anyway, I want to answer what you just.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
I want to
yeah.
ask the question I was thinking of. The question I was thinking is when we talk about like possible world semantics, is God's nature necessarily explaining like why I have a notebook of notes in front of me? Like when you go down the line, does it explain everything or just the first thing?
I think you need to say that it explains everything. Because so think about it like this. Let's say God's nature is necessary. God's nature is sufficient for his willing creation. God's willing creation is sufficient for his active creation. God's active creation is sufficient for creation. That you would literally just conclude off of this that creation is necessary.
Sure. I guess my question is, does each individual thing have to be sufficient, or is it okay for the first thing in the causal chain to be sufficient and everything after that's contingent?
What needs to happen is that there needs to be like an insufficiency. One of these links needs to be insufficient for the next one. But then if it's insufficient, it's contingent and requires an explanation. You can also,
Yeah.
you could probably get to like the heart of the issue like this. You know, let C be the set of all contingent facts.
Oh, I hate this argument because I don't know what to do to it.
If okay, wait, or sorry, it's not the set, the conjunct, which is just saying like this fact and this fact
And this, yeah.
yeah, the conjunct of all contingent facts. C is contingent. That's true because if any fact in a conjunct is contingent, then the entire conjunct is
yeah.
contingent.
And then you're going to create a conjunct between
Yep.
necessary and
If C is contingent, or sorry, let's do all contingencies have an explanation. Therefore, C has an explanation. The explanation
that's what it
is
says.
either necessary or contingent. If the explanation is contingent, then the explanation is in C, which is circular. I'll just put that in parentheses. So the explanation must be necessary, but if the explanation is necessary, then all the facts, then C is necessary. But that's a contradiction because it's contingent.
Oh, this is a different
Yeah. So
argument than I've seen before.
Yeah. So then C just can't exist. C must be empty. There is no
contingent facts.
Yeah. If you think that all contingencies have an explanation, there just aren't any. There just aren't any contingencies.
what if you think none of the contingencies have an explanation? I feel like I keep asking this, but I'm not like.
That's
Then the principle of everything that needs an explanation can
Yeah.
only be explained.
yeah, that's true. But also, like, the worldview would be like horrible, right? Like, if you just think that there's like, well,
I would have
I-
to concede there's no explanatory power in anything.
kind
If
of.
that's my worldview.
That's probably true. Yeah. I don't know. I think that runs into like a ton of problems. Although, if you believe in libertarian free will, like you think that you're like the uncaused cause of all of your actions and that they're all contingent, you probably do think that there are things that are happening, like there are contingencies that are coming about that have no explanation all of the time.
How does that follow?
So, if you believe in libertarian free will, most of the time you want to say that choices are like a brute contingency. They're contingent. They could have been otherwise. You could have made the different choice. There is no explanation for why you chose this choice over that choice.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of, every time a decision takes place, you would say,
Well, wouldn't that be indeterminism?
not necessarily.
If there's no explanation, it would be random, which is indeterminism, rather than libertarian free will.
I haven't looked too deeply into indeterminism. That might be correct. I have no idea.
I love free will. Sorry, it's
Yeah,
like my favorite
yeah.
philosophical. But no, that I see what you're saying. But well, if it was in an indeterminist world, I'd see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But in a libertarian world, this might also be compatibilism a little bit. But like, no, I'm probably a compatibilist anyway. I think it necessarily follows from your nature, and you don't really have control over your nature.
True. Sure.
In the same way that-
I think that makes sense. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
I've heard you talking about morals one time. I'd be interested to hear how you support objective morality. Hi.
Sure. Yeah.
One sec, sorry. I'm on the phone. All good.
So, I think probably like the most plausible route. I don't know. I think virtue ethics is the most plausible, but it takes a while to lay out the framework.
Like
so-
Aristotelian virtue ethics?
Yeah. Like literally exactly Aristotelian virtue ethics. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, there are kind of two steps, both of them, or technically three steps, but the first one is like totally uncontroversial, and then the second two are controversial. And I think that they're defensible. I just think it takes a while to defend them. So the first one is that if something is necessary to achieve your goal, then you ought do it. Premise 2 is that everyone's goal is eudaimonia, the good
Mhm.
life. Premise 3, virtue is necessary to achieve eudaimonia. Therefore, everybody ought to be virtuous.
Yeah. I'm surprised you take this position because Aristotle has received a lot of criticism. If you ask me to name an author, I won't be able to, but I just took a virtue ethics class. Aristotle received a lot of criticism for his non-objectivity, and it seemed like the strongest defense of his objectivity for virtue specifically, that's where the criticism comes from, is how can we know what virtues are virtuous? Because like Aristotle defines courage as something in war broadly. And he also thinks like only men citizens can be virtuous. So if the argument that I've seen to define or to prescribe objectivity to Aristotle's virtues is like common lived experiences, which everyone experiences. That's the strongest argument I've read. But like, how do you make your virtues objective?
So the way that we would be defining virtue is just going to be like the things that are necessary for eudaimonia, and specifically, I would just defend.
Why do people?
Like
why
I
do
would
people
outline
think
like a
I'm
couple
reading?
of them.
I'm
What?
not reading. People are saying I'm reading. Sorry, sorry.
That's okay. But for a lot of these, like for example, we could go one at a time. Oh, a quick clarification: courage is definitely not just about wartime, and if Aristotle said that it's only true in men, or it's like only a virtue or a thing that could be had in men, well, that's definitely false. In fact, I'm very skeptical that he said that.
Aristotle thinks only certain people can become the virtuous man, and the certain people are citizens. You can this is look upable.
Sure. He might hold that not everybody has the ability to be courageous, but
as part of their nature.
He for sure didn't say that like courage can only be used in war. Rather, these are things that deal in like the entire course of your life. Like each virtue is encompassing to like huge portions of your life. Like courage, for example, is important and is necessary literally anytime you're making a decision that involves any risk whatsoever. Courage is what has
I
you
agree.
feel
I
fear
agree
and what
with you.
has you like overcome the fear in a situation where indeed that's the wise thing to do.
I agree with you. Aristotle just creates. Maybe the war example is wrong. I don't have anything to look it up. If you want to look it up, I could be wrong about that, but I am almost certain that Aristotle says like not everyone can become the virtuous person because not everyone is naturally capable of exhibiting these natures perfectly at the perfect time in the perfect way, feeling the perfect feelings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, that's probably true. Although, what I'm saying is that you're going to live the best life that you can if you're virtuous. That there will be people who are like severely, severely mentally ill to the point where there just kind of like isn't like there isn't going to be like a very good life for you to live, but that person will still live the best life that they can by being virtuous.
Sure. Yeah. My issue is I still don't know how you ground your virtues in objectivity. Like, why is
Ground
being
virtues? I'm confused what that's asking. Are you asking like how do we determine like what the virtues are?
no? Well, yeah, it's probably the same question actually. Like for you to say that virtue ethics leads to an objectively moral framework, what you need to say is like these virtues are objectively the correct virtues.
Yeah. And I think that you can do that. So for example, let's take justice, because justice comes up quite a bit. Justice, in the way that I'm defining it, is just like the integrated intellectual, emotional disposition to treat like cases alike. So the reason why you need to treat like cases alike is that one of the elements of living a good life is that you're going to be able to have self-respect. But in order to have self-respect, that's going to require self-knowledge. If you don't know yourself, then you can't respect yourself. And in order to have self-knowledge, you're going to need to have knowledge in general, which of course requires like a justification. And in order to be justified in your judgments of yourself, you would need to be a just evaluator of individuals. You're going to need to be able to evaluate people in a fair way. Otherwise, you can't evaluate yourself in a fair way. So that would make you incapable of having self-knowledge if you don't treat like cases alike.
Yeah, I think all of that follows. The problem that I think arises is you say in my definition of justice. What if I just define justice differently as you?
I'm stipulating it. You can call it schmustus if you want, but that's the virtue that you need.
So you're
to
just
be.
stipulating mine is correct because I say so, more or less.
No. I'm saying like you can call it like the label doesn't matter, the content does. So if you would rather call it like schmustus, we can call
I
it
see what you're saying.
schmustus, and then that's the thing that you ought be. Either way, you need to treat like cases alike.
Okay, I see what you're saying. It doesn't matter what we call it or how we define it. What matters is that like what results from it is we need to do this thing.
Yeah. Like there are like certain like underlying categories, you can assign whatever label you want to them, but those are the things that you ought be.
And obviously you didn't write down your definition, and it was like 7 premises or something.
Oh,
but
wait,
like,
which one? Like for justice?
yeah, I don't need it. But there was a part in it I just don't want to like bastardize.
Yeah,
your
the
definition.
integrate, or it's justice is the integrated.
Oh no, sorry, not for
emotional-
justice. For why being able
Oh,
to
yeah.
judge like all that stuff. Why is it? I agree, it's good.
Yep.
Why is it good to respect yourself?
The reason why it's good to respect yourself is that something that's going to be common. So eudaimonia is the ultimate end. It must span across the entire course of your life. The reason for that is because if you interrogate why you're doing what you're doing, you can ask, well, why would I do that? Why would I do that? Why would I do that? And each time you ask that, it's going to expand farther and farther and farther out across the course of your life, which means that whatever the ultimate end is, it must just be, well, your entire life. So living well is the ultimate end. And what it's going to include, whatever the ultimate end is, it's going to be something that leaves nothing to be rationally desired. And, if you didn't have self-respect, that's a thing that would be left out of that. So eudaimonia must include self-respect.
And how would you define eudaimonia? Pleasure.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, okay, that's how most people define it. Or like
we
happiness.
could define it as, well, are you asking just like a translation of it? People, I
No,
think
the
probably
translation-
well-being is the best translation of it. But we could hold it as like a generic thing that is just like the ultimate end that spans across the entirety of your life that leaves nothing to be rationally desired.
But this ultimate end is the same for all people.
Yeah.
Yeah. This might just be intuition, but that just doesn't feel right for me. I don't feel like um I don't know if Aristotle talks about an acorn turning into an oak tree, but I think he does when he introduces this. But I don't know if we can say like this is the thing that fulfilling your purpose looks like for everything. Like I don't know if we can say that
Why not?
because then we're just imposing our opinions on like I
Not if
yeah,
they're
you're
backed by
saying
logic.
sure, how do you back that like an acorn ought to turn into an oak tree? Because
Oh,
that's what
sorry. So I think that oughts only apply in
to
cases
agents.
of agents. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, I see how you would arrive at that like miscommunication. That's my bad. I could have communicated that more clearly.
Okay. That definitely gets me closer. Again, I'm not necessarily arguing against this. I still don't, it hasn't been persuasive to me. I don't know how, in class we talked about, okay, do you think it's possible to believe you are, I guess first, do you think it's possible to live the good life?
It's certainly possible. It's like very, very difficult.
Okay, I probably think it's impossible. But that doesn't matter all that much. The next question was going to be like, do you think it's possible to believe you're living the good life and not be living the good life?
Yeah, you could be delusional, but then at that point you lack self-knowledge, which means that you would lack justice as a virtue.
Sure. Do you think it's fair? Because I think we agree on a lot of things like outside of religion and philosophy in the real world. Do you think it's fair to apply your perspective of what a good life is for someone else upon someone else if they believe they're living a good life?
Yeah. I think everybody's pursuing the good life, and if somebody isn't, then yeah, you can rationally determine that this person isn't living the good life. Like maybe they're like super delusional.
This feels problematic in the real world, but maybe there would just
I
be
mean, if
points
somebody is like,
Sure, you can go
if somebody's
extreme and
like
talk about
very
like
delusional about
you can talk about like
stuff,
Stockholm syndrome, and I'll agree with you. But like, what about a painter or a professional, whatever, that does something because like subconsciously as a kid they were growing up and they felt like they had to do this to please their parents, and then they find worth in doing this, but they do it to such an extreme that it like might negatively impact the romantic aspects of their life, but they love doing it. But like, how do you tell them they're doing the wrong thing?
yeah,
Like an
because they're
extreme
being
example is
intemperate. They're violating. That's like a textbook violation of the virtue of temperance, which means
law
that
of the
they're
golden mean.
Well,
Or
law
the
of the
golden
golden
middle.
mean stuff applies to all the virtues. That you should be that a virtue lies between two vices. That you can
Yeah.
either go like too extreme. You can be like hedonistic with your relationship to pleasure and the things that you enjoy, or you can be like ascetic and you can like refuse to engage in any pleasure at all. And that in the middle of those two is temperance. You take the right kind of enjoyment. You enjoy things to the right degree.
Yeah.
You put everything in its proper place, and you value your partner who you have obligations towards.
Yes. Do you not see how this seems like you are telling another person, like, what if they're middle? It just seems like we're appealing to majority perspective on virtues.
Nope.
You're saying no.
It's going
Why is
to
that?
be whatever is rationally defensible. And
Why
like,
is it
keep
not
in
rationally
mind,
defensible to dedicate your life to your artwork?
if you're also having like a partner,
No, you don't have a partner, but you don't want one.
then that might be fine depending on the other circumstances of the person's life.
Oh, so you agree that a good life can look different for everyone?
Yeah, but it's going to have the same underlying characteristics is my point. That like the minimal characteristics that I gave earlier are going to be present in all of them.
The minimal is justice.
Like it's going to be it leaves nothing to be rationally desired. It spans across the course of your entire life.
Can't we rationally conclude that or can't we conclude rationally that part of you probably won't agree with this, but like at least biologically, if you're a materialist, like part of living is finding a mate to love, or mate might be the wrong word, but finding a person to love. Like
Not
that's.
necessarily. It depends on the individual.
Do you think you can live a good life in total isolation?
Probably not, but it depends on the individual. I think that you would need to give like a specific life in order to answer these questions, but definitely just based on the way that humans are based on like empirical facts about our psychology.
Yeah, probably
The
not, right?
the average person, their good life is going to include something like living with other people.
Yes, and that was like the argument I was making. How does that follow? Or that does follow rationally, right?
Yeah.
So if a person is secluded making artwork and that fulfills them totally, but they completely isolate themselves, you would argue they are not living a good life despite them feeling
Mm,
like they're living the best life.
no, they might. They very well
How
might
if
be
they have
living
no
the good life.
if they have no human interaction, which you just conceded based on human.
Wait, sorry. I said that the general person, like the person on average, will require this, but I was pretty explicit. Like, I'm not saying this is true of everyone in terms of needing like human connection, but what they're going to need is like eudaimonia in the sense that they're going to live a life that leaves nothing to be rationally desired.
Do you think there are virtues that you think are necessary to living a good life that
Yeah.
only arise from interacting with other people?
No. There are virtues that, like,
Really?
basically every virtue is going to interact with it's going to like interplay with your interactions with other people in the same way. Like, there are all these laws that you live under, but because you'll never violate any of these laws, like you never actually come face to face with it, like it never becomes relevant. You know, the
Mhm.
laws about like shoplifting will never be relevant to me because I'm never going to shoplift.
Mhm.
But there are rules that these virtues impose on you in terms of how you engage with other people. You know, like justice is going to demand that you treat people in ways that are universalizable. But if you don't interact with people, well, then you know the rule kind of just never comes up.
But then you can't perfect that virtue. In Aristotle's definition of
Why
being the
not?
virtuous well, Aristotle argues that to perfect these virtues, you need to practice for years and years and years.
Mhm.
So if you're never interacting with people, you can't practice the virtue.
That's not necessarily true.
How do you
Like, for
practice the
example, you know, it's going to be one of the virtues is going to be you know, avoiding like committing like
We can
tons
just
of
talk about
crimes or
justice.
whatever.
I was
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah, like in
justice.
justice would demand that I don't shoplift. You know, I don't need to engage in some shoplifting to, you know, hone in my justice or like come to learn like the advantages of you know not doing that. So justice is going to give you like restrictions on what you can't do, and then it's going to make like some demands in terms of like obligations towards helping people who really, really, really need help.
But you can't.
But if you have an opportunity to, then you should.
But if you don't have an opportunity, like
So
Aristotle believes you need to practice these virtues from a young age over and over and
yeah.
over till like you're 60 or 70. And in order to be a virtuous person, you need to do every single virtue right, because if you lack in one
Mhm.
virtue, it means you lack in all virtues.
Yes. Well,
And if you don't
I
have,
don't know if I accept that, but yeah.
well, that's Aristotelian.
Oh, sorry. So
Um,
when I say Aristotelian, I'm speaking like Aristotelian in the sense of like the neo-Aristotelian virtue
oh, like since
ethicists.
the 1980s or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
not. I don't hold to like what Aristotle said. I don't care about that. What I care about is like a
Okay.
defensible moral framework. So
All
we
right.
take a
Then
lot of
everything
things
I'm
from
saying,
Aristotle.
everything I'm
Um,
saying might be irrelevant then. I thought you were
No,
talking
no, no.
about
That's fine.
Aristotle.
Like a lot of it is relevant, but one thing that's important to understand is that the virtues manifest themselves differently. Like what it means to be courageous if you're like a healthcare worker is very different from what it means to be courageous if you're like a soldier. Both
Well,
of these
no,
people
no,
are
no.
exemplified.
This is not true. Sorry, this
That's
is
for
not
sure true, right? Like the healthcare worker isn't
not if you're
like
Aristotle.
running through and
Aristotle
Aristotle would
doesn't
agree
think.
with that too. Like
No, he
Aristotle would
wouldn't.
agree
I
that
can explain. I can
courage
explain
is
how
going
he
to
wouldn't.
manifest itself differently in different lives.
I can explain how this
Okay.
doesn't necessarily. Maybe soldiers don't feel the correct amount of courage. It's impossible. Sorry, let me rephrase. A good soldier isn't courageous to the right extent. A good doctor doesn't feel fear to the right extent. This is true because if a good soldier felt fear to the right extent, the good soldier wouldn't be in the battlefield. If a good doctor felt angst or anxiety in the right extent, they wouldn't be a doctor. So like to
Definitely
say these,
not.
yeah. So to
That's
say
like
these,
that's like for sure 100% false. Like that's like
oh,
obviously false, right?
I mean,
So like the
you're just
soldier
disagreeing
should
with
feel
Aristotle.
fear, otherwise they're going to run head first and then get shot,
That's a
right?
good
Like if
soldier,
they
though.
didn't feel any fear, they would just get killed in the
Wait, Ian, have
battlefield
you read
immediately.
Nicomachean Ethics?
Have
I'm not trying
you?
to be. Yes, I have.
Oh, sure. Wait. So okay, we could quiz you on this.
I mean, please don't quiz me. I didn't study
What's
it. I
a
read
final
it.
end?
A final end is the end that doesn't need explanation.
Explanation? That's not quite
Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say, and you know, like I'm effectively correct. The final end is the
So
thing.
I have a copy of Neomachian Ethics. I mean, if you want, you can direct me to the page where Aristotle says every virtue manifests itself identically in everybody's life.
Wait, I never made that claim. That's not the claim I made. The claim I
Is
made.
that not what you're saying?
No,
Aristotle
that's not what I'm
said?
saying. No. What I said is that Aristotle doesn't believe a good soldier can be virtuous. Aristotle doesn't believe a good doctor can be virtuous because they don't feel the emotions in the correct way. That's what I said.
Does Aristotle believe a good soldier can be virtuous? Yes.
Can you keep reading?
Okay, let's get like a page number maybe.
Sure.
Courage then is something of this sort, but the name also applies to 5 other kinds. First comes from the citizen soldier, for this is the most like true courage. Citizen soldiers seem to face danger because of the penalties imposed of laws and reproaches they would otherwise incur.
That's what I was
honors
saying
they
about courage
win.
earlier, which you
Oh
said
wait, so
doesn't.
this is talking about citizen soldiers.
Yeah, that's what I was saying Aristotle talks about earlier, is citizens and soldiers for courage.
No, citizen soldiers, not like citizens and soldiers, like citizen soldiers. Like people who aren't professional soldiers.
Sure. I was just saying earlier that Aristotle talks about courage as it relates to soldiers, which is true.
But specifically, you said that he's saying like soldiers don't feel fear. Like the
No,
the
that's a
virtuous
different.
soldier
I'm
doesn't
saying
feel fear.
I'm saying way earlier. I said he talks about courage as it relates to soldiers. Now I'm making a different argument about how soldiers don't feel the proper amount of fear because if they did, they would coward.
No, that's not true. Because if you feel the proper amount of fear, either you're going to be able to rationally overcome that. Like either
I mean, you can make this claim. Can you find Aristotle saying this?
Wait, I don't care what Aristotle says. I'm telling you
Okay,
my
at
view
least
on
we
it.
conclude. At least we concede that. But you just said I was objectively wrong about
I
Aristotle.
told you this earlier.
No, you just said I was
correct?
objectively wrong about
Okay,
what
you're getting
Aristotle
like pretty
said.
bad faith. I'm gonna get like pretty direct with you.
Okay, yeah, wait, sorry. I'm
wait,
not trying to be
you
bad
you
faith.
agree that I told you earlier that I don't hold to what Aristotle
Yes.
says, that I hold to what the Neo-Aristotelians say? You agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. What I was
Okay.
trying to say is that you just looked that up because you told me what I said about Aristotle was wrong.
And so, I mean, could you find in here where
I
Aristotle
don't have any
says
way to
that-
look. Do you mind if I pause?
Sure, yeah, go for it. If you want to go find like the quote and then come back. In fact, I don't know. I wonder, maybe Claude could find it. Does Aristotle think that a good soldier will feel no fear at all?
Because that's a straw man. I never said they'll feel no fear. I said they won't feel it in the correct way.
Oh, that they won't feel the correct amount of fear?
Yes, that's what I said.
Does Aristotle believe that a good soldier will feel the correct amount of fear? So you're saying that they won't feel the correct amount of fear?
Yeah, because if they felt the correct amount of fear, they wouldn't be able to be a good soldier.
Let's see. This is like definitely false for anyone that knows like anything about virtue ethics. Although I don't know, I haven't read Aristotle, so maybe he drops like this obviously false take, in which case I'll just say that I think that it's obviously false.
Wait, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but why'd you just try and say you're going to quiz me and you have a Nicomachean Ethics book in front of you if you've never read it?
Well, I told you that earlier because I don't think you've read it either.
Wait, no, you didn't tell me that. I said, have
I
you
did
read
tell
it?
you that.
Okay, maybe you did. I said, have you read it? And you said, I have a book right next to me. Have you read it? Let's quiz you.
Oh no,
Which
I said earlier. I said that I've never read it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot that. I didn't know you said that. It's bad
No,
faith
I hold
that
to
I asked.
the Neo-Aristotelians.
You did say that. I remember you saying that. What did Claude tell you?
Still waiting. No, in fact, Aristotle holds pretty much the opposite view. Go
What's it say?
figure. Yeah, one sec. Let's. Okay.
Interesting. This is contrary to what I learned
Does
in my.
Aristotle believe that a good soldier won't feel the correct amount of fear? No. It's going to tell you exactly what I'm telling you, which is that a soldier is going to feel the correct amount of fear. No, in fact, Aristotle holds pretty much the opposite view. For him, feeling the correct amount of fear is precisely what courage is. In the Nicomachean Ethics, Book 3, courage is the
Wait,
mean
I think it's
between
understanding your
cowardice-
question. I think it's understanding your question wrong.
Okay.
And like I could be wrong about this too, but this is what I just learned in my virtue ethics class by like one of the leading virtue ethicists. And like Peter Singer spoke, he's not in virtue ethics, but he spoke in my class as well. I think it might be thinking you're asking if a soldier is a good person, do they feel the correct amount of courage? That's what it seemed like it was answering. I'm
Okay,
saying
I
like
can do
the
like
best. I'm saying the best soldier. Maybe not a good soldier. Maybe that's the wrong word. The best soldier, I think, is what we said in class. The best soldier doesn't feel some emotions properly because it allows them to be a better soldier.
I can
Do you
add
understand what I'm
like
saying?
does Aristotle believe that a good soldier who fulfills their telos as a soldier?
Or maybe the best soldier. But yeah.
That the best soldier okay. Does Aristotle believe that the best soldier won't feel the correct amount of fear? Which, to be clear, it depends how we define best, but I can't imagine that he holds this view either. Because Aristotle is going to define goodness in terms of telos. So
Yeah.
maybe he's
But he
saying
also
like,
thinks like some people are incapable of achieving it based on actions they pursued in their life. So like if you murder someone, you're just like erased from becoming the good man.
I don't know if that's true.
I mean, unless
Um,
everything I learned in class was incorrect.
But I mean, this is my understanding of virtue is that it's literally about, you feel the right amount of these emotions in the situation where feeling the emotion is helpful. So the way courage works is that you should feel the right amount of fear in ways that track on to the risk of the situation that's in front of you. That, if there's like a fire in front of you,
Yes,
but
yes,
your
yes,
like
yes, I
daughter
agree.
is in there, you should
What do you
feel
think the-
fear, but you should still probably run in and save your daughter.
Yeah, what do you think the correct amount of fear is to feel? Maybe we didn't cite Aristotle, but like what you're saying is exactly what we said. What do you think the correct amount of fear, or what do you think you should feel to feel the correct amount of fear if you're a soldier and all your comrades die and there's like 20 people fighting you?
There
What
are
do you think the
20
correct-
people fighting you?
Yeah, like there's 20 soldiers that are coming to finish the job.
Then I don't know. You should probably do your best to kill as many of them as you can.
No, that's not my question. What do you think the correct amount of fear to feel is?
You want like fear units? You want like the units of how many like
No, we can do
pathways?
it like
You want fire? Like what units would you like?
we can do it like qualitatively, kind of like do you think the correct amount of fear is like Rambo, no fear, you go out, shoot as many as you can? Do you think the correct amount of fear is cowardice in the situation where like you were so fearful that you are going to die that like you can't move? Do you think the correct amount, like what do you think the correct amount of fear in that situation is? Not to be a good soldier, but just like the correct amount of fear.
I think that the correct amount of fear, assuming that you've joined the fight for reasons that are good, that your side is indeed like the good virtuous side that you ought be fighting for. I think that in a situation like this, you will feel fear to the extent that it's helpful. And if feeling any fear at all is not helpful, then you won't.
And then what is feeling no fear at all called?
Feeling no fear at all?
Yeah.
I'm sure if you felt no fear at all, well, that would be like foolhardiness, right?
I'm not
Because
sure how
Aristotle thinks that you should feel like I don't care what Aristotle says, but like courage in general is defined as like feeling the right amount of fear by virtue ethicists.
Yes, and in some situations, like this one, do you think it's possible to be like the best soldier you can be? You should feel no fear in this situation.
To be the best soldier, to be the best person.
The best soldier, that's what I've been arguing. To be the best soldier in this situation, do you think it's possible to feel no fear?
Is it possible, or should you? You shouldn't feel no fear. You should feel the appropriate amount of fear. You shouldn't like fucking run out there and then get like shot and killed instantly. You should be strategic about it. You should have fear in correspondence to your different options, that if you ran out there and then get shot immediately, you should be scared of that option, but you should be less scared of the option wherein you might be able to kill some of them.
Okay. I think I probably disagree with that. But
Why?
that's okay. Okay.
What's wrong about
I-
that?
Yeah, I don't know if fear necessarily says, yeah, Joe, I'm just saying that being the best soldier doesn't mean you. Anyway, I don't think that fear or lack thereof excludes you from being rational or being strategic. I don't know if those are exclusionary.
But wouldn't it be more rational? Wouldn't it give you a better understanding of the situation if you felt an appropriate amount of fear?
Well, this is the issue with virtue ethics. If we're like the appropriate amount of fear when you're going to die is the most fear.
Depends on. I mean, well, we're all going to die, but that doesn't mean that we should all
You
be
know
like
what I mean.
stricken of. Well, but this is relevant. We're all going to die, but that doesn't mean that we should all be stricken, terrified by our deaths. There are things that you can do before you die.
Sure, but if you're going to die prematurely, like yeah, if you're going to die a brutal death, you ought to, or not ought to be, sorry, but like the correct amount of fear is like, oh my gosh, they are going to do X, Y, and Z to me. I like that to me feels like the correct amount of fear to feel in these situations. In a situation where you're going to be like brutalized, like yeah, you should almost be paralyzed with fear.
You definitely shouldn't be paralyzed with fear if you have options. That wouldn't be very virtuous.
Wait, so you shouldn't. Yeah, no, I agree.
You should recognize that it's like a terrifying situation, and nevertheless, you should be courageous because there are still things to do. Like, for example,
Yeah, but
Flight
okay,
93, you know, they hijacked on 9/11, you know, they hijacked the Flight 93, or they hijacked all the planes, but one of the planes was delayed by like 45 minutes. And because of the
They tried
delay,
to take
the
over, yeah.
people knew what was happening. They knew
Mhm.
about what was going on. So when they got hijacked, they fought back and they were able to overcome it, even though it meant certain death.
Yeah,
They Is this am I back? Wait one sec. I gotta share this stuff back.
talking to
Okay, wait.
Josh.
Got
Also, I did
that.
want to. I just wanted to apologize if you thought I was being bad faith earlier. I wasn't trying to be. I might have misunderstood what you were saying, or we might have been talking past each other.
That's fine. Don't worry about it. Is it this one?
You're the one who claimed you should know how you should feel. No, I'm doing the opposite. I'm saying I don't know if you can tell people how they like should and should not feel, and it feels like in some situations I'm going to disagree with someone based on how you should feel in a situation. So I don't know how you reach objectivity in that situation. Not silk.
Where the heck?
Stop talking to chat. Come on. Just trying to.
Where the heck is my remarkable? Oh, okay, it's right here. Sure. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I just had to get it recentered.
Like literally or figuratively?
No. Like I had to. Apparently my YouTube stream died or something, so I had to put all the stuff back.
I hope you're able to figure it out.
That's all good. All good. Sure.
But the example I was talking about, I thought it was the Greeks. It was the Romans.
The Romans. That would be
Yeah.
like a very silly system.
No, I totally agree with you. I'm just saying, like, they didn't believe the proper amount of fear is leaving and fighting another day. They disagreed with you.
Okay, so then the reason why they would be unvirtuous is because they're being like foolish, which goes against wisdom. You know, they want fewer soldiers for some reason.
Yeah. No, wait. Okay, Ian, I actually think we do agree maybe a little bit, at least a little bit. What I'm saying is like the Romans, and I thought Aristotle, but maybe it was just like an adaptation of Aristotle. But the Romans believe like to be a good soldier, you cannot feel like, if we agree the proper amount of fear is to run and fight another day, you can't feel that, which means the good soldier can't be the virtuous person in that scenario. That's what I was arguing.
Sure. But I think that's
and,
like
like-
obviously silly.
No, I do too. I think the point I was making is like, how can we decide what the correct amount of an emotion to feel is when people disagree on how much emotion you should feel? And if I'm assuming your argument's just going to be like it's somewhere in the middle of two extremes or two vices, so like happiness is somewhere between manic and depression, right?
Well, my argument is that you should feel the emotion to the extent
said
and in
Aristotle
the
was wrong.
circumstances in which it's useful. You should feel anger about people's actions when that anger motivates you to solve like an injustice. Like
How
when
do
you notice something like an injustice and anger would be useful for that situation, then you should use your anger. Like you should feel angry.
You should read Anger and Forgiveness. I'm not sure anger's ever good.
That's definitely false.
Do you know Martha Nussbaum?
Yeah.
You should read her Anger and Forgiveness. I wrote a
She-
paper arguing
She
arguing
argues
against.
that anger is never good.
She says we should move away from anger and another emotion. It's a really long name. I wrote a paper arguing against it because I agree with you, but it's like really hard to argue against. And I'd recommend you read it. She says we should move away from anger. She talks about a bunch of examples, talks about like Michael Jordan's brother dying and how he forgave him rather than being angry because anger doesn't do anything to solve problems of the past, et cetera, et cetera. It's a really good paper.
Review of Forgiveness exposes the and White's argues that both. Okay, wait one sec. Let me. Anger. Trap of anger.
Like 25
qualified
pages.
everyday justice. This is way longer than 25 pages. This is 336 pages.
There's a section in it which talks about what I'm saying, like
Okay.
a chapter titled
Just-
Anger and
yeah,
Forgiveness or
yeah.
something.
Anger, weakness, payback, and downranking. Is that the one?
Yeah, I think she uses Aristotle's definition of anger.
Okay.
Kind of built off Seneca a little bit as well.
I'd be curious what she argues because I do take Nussbaum pretty seriously. Although, I mean, if that's the view that she holds, I would need to hear the argument.
It's a really good argument. I read it in the Virtue Ethics class, actually.
Okay. One sec. What is it? It's what's the one fucking? Oh yeah, it's the library.
You don't just PDF them.
Yo ho, a pirate's life for me.
Come on, I was a broke college student.
What is it? It's anger and forgiveness.
Then like 10 more words that no one cares about. There's another one by Sherry. I forget her first name. Black author. One of the leading authors in virtue ethics or emotion ethics, but she's a virtuist. And she writes about similar stuff as well. Aisha Cherry, I think.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, she's
Okay, wait. One sec. I'm super curious. I'd be so surprised if she said that it's never useful.
I hope I didn't make that claim. I don't know if I did, but she said there's 3 different types of like societies. We start in anger, then we have quasi-anger, which is like you feel anger for a second and then you move away from anger. And then like the end goal is a world where anger isn't even felt. It's something like that.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if there's.
Maybe you can ask Claude, like, what are her 3 like worlds of anger and how do they progress?
Okay, this chapter's long as shit. I'm just trying to get the conclusion
transition
section.
anger. Thank you.
Okay, wait.
No, but she says transition anger is the anger between or the stage between anger and whatever she defines as the final stage. It's like a transition to get to the end goal.
Okay, wait. What is the point of talking normatively about anger? Is it really deep-seated tendency left over from our evolutionary prehistory? What is the possible use of this critique? The use, I believe, is threefold. First, even tendencies that cannot be altered can be bracketed as sources for public policy. Thus, behavioral psychology, noting certain quirks of the human mind, allows us to see them for what they are, as just quirks, and to think about more rational ways to make policy. For example, if we understand that people have a tendency to what psychologists call the availability heuristic, that is, to thinking a single salient example and judging other cases in the light of that, we will see why intuitions about risk might need to be balanced by some type of detached cost-benefit analysis. Or, as I've argued concerning disgust, if we see that human beings have a strong tendency to subordinate and exclude others by projecting disgust properties, bad smell, animality onto them, we can be alert to the dangers of stigma and subordination in our society and refuse to base public policy on emotions whose normative defective foundations have been laid. But second, the tendency to anger appears to be only partly evolutionary and at least partly cultural or role specific, or rather, culture makes a difference in further development and expression of the tendency, if there is such. There is a considerable variation across cultures and valorization of anger. The Atku lying at one extreme in the Greek Romans, a good deal closer to them than modern Americans. Within a single culture, there's no great variation. As we've noted in regard to gender, some subcultures may deviate from large cultural patterns, observing the elasticity. We can set ourselves to educate our children.
She's a virtue theorist, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
Yeah.
She falls into the camp of people. Yeah, I don't know. I'd be curious.
Yeah, she thinks we should move away from anger, which is like, again, why I have trouble. She might have also been the one that writes about how we can root these virtues in objectivity based on lived human experiences that everyone experiences. And one of those experiences is human interaction. That's why I asked you about it earlier. It might not be her, but it might also be her. I'm not positive.
Maybe, although I don't know if that's strictly necessary. And if it is strictly necessary, if somebody presented me an argument for thinking that like everybody ought, in order to develop your virtues, you ought like live a life that includes these things, then I would just say, well, then that's what you ought to do.
Yeah, fair. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. I think the Nussbaum paper is really interesting because she's a virtue theorist that doesn't think anger is, to my understanding, like ever morally not sufficient, but like morally even neutral. She thinks it's like a bad thing that we should move away from.
That just seems like obviously false. So I'd be really curious what her argument is. Like, for example, it seems like there's tons and tons of cases that you could think of where anger would be useful.
I don't agree with it, and I agree with you. In my paper, I wrote something about how what she talks about is transition anger, which is like a brief moment of anger and then moving away from anger is probably the ideal state because it's like a catalyst for action. And I think that's a really good thing when people are oppressed. Like, I'm half black, half white, but like as a white person to feel for, I think, like black people being oppressed in America, anger is a really good source to help you feel this pain. I forget what her objection was, so I can't even tell it to you, but like that was my argument against her. But I will say it was like really, really, like it's really persuasive. I don't want to take up too much of your time, Ian. I'd be so curious what her argument is against that, because that feels like unassailable to me. Like, I don't know, if you were to think about like, I don't know, like slave revolutions, I bet a lot of slave revolts were driven by anger. I think that's like an excellent example of like a good use of anger. I obviously thought it was a good example too, because that's what I used to argue, but maybe you can use Claude. I know we're not talking about God anymore, but I love talking about like this kind of stuff. If you can ask Claude what her like final destination of anger is, she argues it's more ideal than transition anger, which is like a brief moment of anger into like rational thinking, which I think is ideal. She argues that that's not the ideal either. I can't remember why, but as I was arguing it, it was like she made points against essentially that argument. Oh, okay. Wait, I see. So her position isn't just, okay, sure. So her, I can read what Claude said. Sure. Anger isn't just a pain at a wrong. Okay, wait, sorry. She starts from a broadly Aristotelian definition. Anger isn't just a pain at a wrong. It constitutively includes a desire for payback. The wrongdoer should suffer in return. Her essential argument is that this
payback wish is always defective and it fails on a dilemma. Either you think the offender's suffering will somehow restore what was lost or undo the wrong, which is magical thinking, since making the rapist or murderer suffer doesn't bring back what was destroyed, or you shift to what she calls the road of status. You construe the injury purely as a downranking of yourself, in which case payback really can work. Humiliating them does relatively elevate you, but only at the cost of an objectionably narcissistic obsession with relative status. So, I mean, I obviously agree that if what you take anger to be is something that necessarily includes like a payback or like an unjust payback. But
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think payback is good if it's like justice.
Can I say one thing
Like,
before?
yeah, go for it.
I could be wrong. You can ask Claude, but I believe when we talked about it, part of payback doesn't even have to be external. Part of her definition is downranking, which you just read.
Yeah.
And downranking can be like purely internal as well, I believe. So like, in fact, we talked about how you can feel anger towards a chair and like want payback towards a chair because you personify the chair, even though like, you know, the chair, you can't get payback against a chair, right? So
Oh, sure. Okay, wait. So the transition anger is the type of
That's what I-
anger. Yeah,
yeah.
the type of anger that she does think is good. Which okay,
no, I don't think she thinks that's good. I think that's the middle. I think that's the middle step, and then she has a final step, which that leads you to.
Wait 1 sec. Okay, but she's carefully room for something she calls transition anger, a borderline case whose entire content is how outrageous, something must be done about this. It's forward-looking protest without the wish for the offender's suffering, and she thinks it's rational, valuable, and often essential to fighting injustice. I mean, Claude could be hallucinating.
Could you ask if I could be mixing up terms. I think transition anger is called transition anger because it transitions you from anger to a different thing. Can you ask like what her end
sure.
goal of anger is? I could be mixing up terms. I think it's a like German or Greek term.
Yeah, you can ask it. But I mean, yeah, this all seems like, I don't know. I do have like retributive leanings in terms of justice. So, but okay, I think I agree largely. Like, I agree that the two horns of the dilemma that she lays out, that either when you're angry, you're like lashing out at people and you want to get payback against them, and because you think that that's going to like fix the thing that they did to you, like obviously that's false.
Obviously.
And, you know, it's although I think it's a false dichotomy. I think that you could think, wow, I think this person deserves to suffer. Like if you're a retributivist about it, I think you could think, wow, this person deserves to suffer, not because it's going to fix anything, not because it's going to lower their status, but just because they deserve to. Like, you know, if
Yeah.
somebody was like a rapist, but you know omnisciently that if you
She
set them
talks
free,
about this. She talks about that explicitly in the work. She brings up an example of, I don't know what we can say on TikTok, but like of that. And I guess you just said it, but whatever. She brings up
Yeah.
an example of that and talks about how like even then it's not preferable. And ultimately what she gets into is like you can still punish people, but your punishment shouldn't be because you want them to be downranked or want them to feel harm. It should be because you want, this is where I forget, but like want the world to be better, like a deterministic perspective of punishment kind of.
I think that's like almost certainly false. Like even if I know you're not arguing for that, but like
I don't want to
let's say that
bastardize her
somebody got-
position.
I don't know, like let's say that there's like a rapist, but you omnisciently know that he's never going to do any crime ever again in the future. Like it still seems like the person deserves punishment, even if it's not going to prevent him from doing like a crime in the future.
Intuitively, I totally feel like I agree with you. Also, like I think I probably do agree with you. Have you heard about like successory claims? That's the wrong word, but like claims to something. Whatever. I don't want to get into that. There's an idea within reparations, which is like even if a harm was done, if that harm is no longer harming you and another person is like necessarily dependent on that harm occurring for them to live a good life, then it's more wrong for you to like undo that harm than it is for you to allow them. And the scenario is like if I steal your car and then I sell it to someone else and that like uproots your whole life, but then 10 years later you find that car and someone else is driving it and now it's central to their life, you don't have a right to take that car back because you'd be instituting another harm.
Sure, that sounds like a messy, difficult. Like I obviously agree with that example, but I'm sure there's like tons of literature about this exact issue about like analogies back and forth in the same way that there are for most like applied ethics things.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to stray away from the moral argument because that relates to God. I guess the reason I brought up Nussbaum is because how do you reconcile that like she has either a different definition of anger compared to you, which is to say like maybe you don't believe anger is always retributive. Um, I didn't before, but now I do believe anger is always retributive in some sense. So maybe you don't believe that, or she doesn't believe anger is good because of the retributive nature, and you think it is good. How do you say that like this virtue is objectively good when you guys can't even agree on like? Do you understand what I'm
You
asking?
certainly don't think. I hope you're not making the argument that ethics can't be objective if people disagree on it.
No, that's not. I guess this is kind of getting back to like transcendental idealism a little bit. How do you know who is correct? I guess would be my question.
Yeah, you would just like reason through it. You would have to, I don't know, go through logically the arguments in favor of each position and then figure that out.
Do you think it's possible for two arguments to be logically sound and
Not for opposite conclusions.
Yeah, I agree. But so you think either your idea of anger and her idea of anger, one of them is logically unsound,
So the idea of anger, I think
and
that
like and its place in society. Sorry.
I think like
And what?
definitions are largely stipulative. I think that you just stipulate what you mean. If this is what Nussbaum means, then I would have to, I don't know, like I'd have to meet her on her own terms. But yeah, I think
But
that
you would.
I
didn't
think
mean to cut
that
you off.
I couldn't have like a sound argument for the falsity of this, and then she gives a sound argument for like the truth of it. One of us has to be wrong.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. But it sounded like you conceded. I hate the word conceded. You agreed with her definition that anger might include a retributive
Sometimes
component.
that's
but
like for sure
sometimes.
sometimes true.
Okay. So that's where you guys would disagree. She thinks it's always true.
Well, I mean, transition anger doesn't seem to have that.
No, it has a brief moment of that, I believe. I think did you ask Claude? I could be confusing a
Yeah,
different term.
I mean, I asked.
Maybe it's
Well, wait, I asked
capital.
what is the end goal of anger, but it didn't tell me what it was for like transition anger.
Let me see if I can find my iPad and see what I wrote about it.
I bet I have the PDF in front of me.
Okay, I found my iPad. Because I think transition anger is the second one, and then there's a third one. Actually, do you just mind if I mute for a second on my phone? My iPad's
That's fine. I wonder. It's quite perplexing to me.
Sorry, I know why I got confused. She has something called the transition, and then she has something called transition anger.
Yeah, I see that.
I think the transition's good. I don't think transition anger is the end goal.
Okay.
I forgot she labeled them like essentially the same thing. So the transition is like you still feel that moment of anger and outrage and desire for retribution, but it goes away like almost instantly. And I think we might agree that's preferable because it elicits a stronger response to oppression. I don't know if you would agree with that, but that was my argument. I think for a white person to go against white people oppressing like whoever, just being like that's outrageous isn't enough of a catalyst. You need to feel like how you feel about rapist, where it's like no.
Sure, yeah.
So then she disagrees with that.
Well, okay, so I see. I don't know if I would agree with her that the initial knee-jerk angry reaction is one of like I think this person deserves to suffer.
So you disagree with her definition?
I think I disagree with her account. So she's saying every single time you ever feel anger, it's literally always this person deserves to suffer. I don't know
I
if
can give
that's
you.
true.
Oh,
That
sorry. Were
doesn't.
you
That
asking me?
strikes me as not true.
I have like her 5 pillars of anger. If you want me to read them to you, I don't know if
Sure.
you have them on Claude.
No, it's fine. Yeah, you can read them.
All right. The first one is slighting or downranking. The second one is of the self or people around. The third one is wrongfully or inappropriately done. The fourth one is accompanied by pain. And the fifth one is involving a desire for retribution. That's how she, and I think Aristotle, describe anger.
Yeah, that strikes me as not true.
Could you come up? I originally agreed with you. Could you come up with an example where anger isn't retributive?
Yeah, like if I stub my toe.
So that's the thing. I do feel like you're either retributive upon yourself, which is part of her definition, where like, I know you're saying, no, I'm just saying like what I like. So you're mad at yourself and you want to like punish yourself. Some people feel that, or you're angry at the chair. And this was my argument as well, where it's like, you can't be angry at something that's like not a thing, but you personify the chair itself and wish for retribution against the chair, which is why like some people punch a chair after they stub their toe, which is obviously irrational.
Well, sure. So I agree in like the stubbing the toe example. Like obviously your anger there is going to be irrational. I don't know. I think that like let's say that you were a parent and you're raising kids, and your kid said that they were going to do homework, but then you get home and they're like watching TV. I don't think the feeling of anger that you feel there needs to be like you deserve to suffer.
Then she would just say that's not anger. That's something else called like disappointment or justiceness, right? Like she would just say that's no longer anger then.
I don't know. I mean, at that point, it's just like a verbal dispute. But anyway, do you have anything else? Otherwise, I might move on to the next guest.
No, that's fine. I just thought the argument about like incongruencies or incompatibilities within virtue ethicists' ideas of anger when they agree on the same definition is problematic.
Sure. Although, gosh, it seems like I wouldn't even agree on the same definition.
But well, she makes it seem like her and Aristotle are operating from the same or like essentially the same definitions, and they would disagree.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. I think I have like an understanding of what anger is, and I think that there are like instances of anger that aren't. I don't know. Wait, do you think God feels anger?
Is this another bad faith question? We're gonna hang up on me after I answer it.
It's a
You did
horrible
this last
faith
time.
question.
Okay. I don't know.
Oh, I do remember you.
Yeah. Was that a good thing?
It's fine. It's fine. I super appreciated the conversation today.
I appreciate that. Sometimes I get animated. I really don't mean to be.
No, me too.
Bad
It's the more I've talked to you, I think I totally believe that you took like a virtue ethics class on this.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I just started taking notes after our last conversation because I felt like, I don't want to be here forever, but I do have one more thing.
Yeah.
About your argument about how time necessitates change.
Or I don't know if we have
change
enough time to get into it.
Crap. Okay.
We've been
Anyway,
talking
my
for like an hour
conclusion.
and a half.
Okay,
Come back
That's
later. Come back some different day.
I will. I appreciate you, Ian. I
Yeah.
hope you have a
Hey,
great-
appreciate you too. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate
Have
you.
a great night.
Oh, fuck. Okay. Yeah, you too. Philodragon, thanks so much for the 20 memberships. 20 memberships. That's impeccable. That's incredible. Hey, if you want to learn about virtue ethics, we're doing a reading group. Oh, what? Okay, we're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. Yeah, thanks so much for the 20 gifted memberships. I appreciate it. That's huge, actually. That's like a ton. Let's get a big W for Philo Dragon. If you guys want to learn about virtue ethics, we're doing a reading group of Rosalind Hursthouse is on virtue ethics. Next one is July 25th, 8 p.m. EST. In my Discord, discord.gg/allegedly Ian. Okay. Teamy T, thanks so much for the super chat. Check John Drake 294's hard drive. I don't know who the fuck that is. Virtuous Pat, thanks so much for the super chat. Does he think all soldiers are like Astartes from Warhammer 40k? Maybe the good ones. Mr. Pacho, thanks so much for the super chat. I don't want to be mean, but I'm begging this guy to recognize that calling yourself an Aristotelian doesn't mean you agree with 100% of the things Aristotle said at every point in his entire life, like Jesus Christ. True, and he would know that if he was in the reading group. Rosalind Hursthouse is on virtue ethics every other 8 p.m. EST in the Discord. I know I just plugged it, but I had to plug it twice because it was so virtuous. Virtuous Path, thanks so much for the super chat. I must die, but I must die bawling. But must I die bawling? Epictetus. That's fun. I like that. Dr. Pizza, MD, thanks so much for the super chat. The beginning of Metal Gear, Snake Eater covers what it means to be the ideal soldier in the first 45 minutes of the game. Big boss over Aristotle. I wish you included what he said. I'd be interested. Grimlock, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hydration donation, virtues are grounded in ethics. Grimlock, thanks so much for the super chat. And ethics are grounded through agency/autonomy. So if God's retribution is sending us to eternal fire for disobedience, is God eternally angry? True. That's a great question. Yeah. Martha Nussbaum will get tortured forever, it sounds. So sad. Hate to see it. Hate to hear it. All right, if you're in that guest request box, hey, how's it going?
Hello.
Yep, how old are you?
27.
And what religion?
Probably Christian.
Yeah, what makes you think that God exists?
What is your proof that God doesn't exist?
Good answer. Good answer. I think that the proof that God doesn't exist is just that the models that are available on the market are non-starters. You know, either God was eternally creating the universe or he was not eternally creating the universe. If God was eternally creating the universe, then the universe is just eternal. And the alternative there is that God was not eternally creating, which means that he would change. So he would be within time. So he would be within creation. So he's not the creator then either. So we have a dilemma in front of us. Either God's creating or not creating eternally. Either way, God can't create. So there is no God.
Okay. That's all I was wondering.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for coming on. Do you have anything else?
No.
Okay. Thanks so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
That dude's the GOAT. I paid that dude on Fiverr so I could feel tough. Hey, what's up? How's it going?
Hey, I'm good, thank you. Hey guys, my name is Beth. Hey Ian. Oh my
Hey.
gosh, so happy to put me on. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm from the UK, not that that's relevant anyway. Lord.
I can tell.
Oh, it's the accent. Potatoes, anywho. God isn't real. Yeah, I really do believe, also I'm a Christian, you can see in the cross in the bio. Thank you for me on. I really do believe that God is real. And for me, one of the reasons, I mean, it's like the main reason, but definitely one of the reasons is just looking at logic. Like, I just don't think that logic and ethics particularly can come from nowhere. I don't believe that it's evolved. I don't believe that it came over time. I'm not saying that's any of the arguments that you put forward. I don't know, like, your particular beliefs. That I don't want to assume anything.
Yeah. I'm
I
happy
feel
to
like
explain the account for both of those things.
thanks. I feel like they're not really. They just can't be evolved things. They have to come from a moral giver, supreme moral lawgiver, an objective moral lawgiver, and that's outside of like space, time, and dimensions. So
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's my vision. It kind of leans a little bit. I don't know too much about philosophy, but I think it leans a little bit on what Aristotle as well said. I think he might have helped come up with this whole theory of like law of excluded middle or something like
He
that, where
did. He
like
did. Yeah.
like either true or false, but it's neither not. Hey, my English. It's neither not true nor false, basically, but it's either true or false.
Yeah.
So I think that also just, I guess when I kind of looked at that and scanned over that, put together with the fact that I don't believe that logic is evolved, it just makes so much sense
Yeah.
for there to be this moral lawgiver. And obviously, if there isn't, I guess to wrap up, like how do we explain things like?
Oop, shit. Why the fuck is this? Okay. Oop.
That's okay. You're good.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
like for example,
Wait. Can I? How about I get in there and then explain where
yes,
logic
yes,
comes
please.
from and ethics come from? So one of the things that is evolved is the ability for us to think about things. We have thoughts. Our thoughts are about something. Our minds are capable of representing things. But in order to represent anything, things need to have consistent identities. Logic just is the guarantee that the thought has a consistent identity. That's any violation of any of the laws of logic will necessitate that there's a thing that is not self-identical. So where logic comes from and the necessity of logic, it does come from evolution, specifically the fact that we evolved to have a representational capacity. So are you fine with that?
I do follow. I can definitely follow where you're coming from. I guess the question I'd ask is just so things like 2 + 2 = 4. How would you explain that? Would you say that's a statement to have always been true, and have always been false, or was that a statement that maybe was like true at some points, or was it like how would you view things like that? Is it kind of when humans discover that it's true that 2 + 2 becomes 4? It's like it could have been like 3 for like 600 years, and then it's 4 on the 700th year. Or was it
Yeah.
that it was always true?
No, it
But
was
it like
always true.
okay, so then would you like see that as a maybe a point towards things either being true or false? I know you talk. I don't know if I
I
understood your
agree with
argument.
logic. I don't know. I don't know why.
Is your argument then that like things are only true if they're commonly recognized to be true over time?
No.
Okay, so could you re-explain your point, please?
Yeah, I think that the way that humans have access to logic is because we have thoughts and our thoughts are representative of things. And in order to have thoughts that are representative of things, they need to be self-consistent. And that just is logic. Logic is rules that make thoughts self-consistent. So the things that we're able to represent are going to be bound by logic because of the underlying structure of reality. Logic just describes the underlying structure of reality. So
Okay, I see. Thank you so much, Riley, for explaining. I think I understand it a bit better now. It just took me a bit to get my head around it. But how would you explain ethics then through that framework?
yeah, I mean, we could explain ethics. We could explain ethics as emerging as like necessary logical truths that I'm an agent. What that means is that I take actions in order to achieve goals. But in order to achieve any of my goals, I'm going to need my freedom and well-being. If something's necessary to your goal, then you have a reason to have it. If you have reasons to have something, then we say that you ought have it. Therefore, you ought have your freedom and well-being. But if you ought have it, others ought not interfere with it. And if others ought not interfere with it, then you're saying that you have a right to it. So we then take a step back and say, well, just because I'm an agent, I was able to reason to the conclusion that I have a right to freedom and well-being. But then all agents must have a right to freedom and well-being. Otherwise, there's a contradiction in my view. So then everyone has a right to freedom and well-being.
Okay, I see. I think I've studied a little bit of like looked into like a little bit here and there of like philosophy. I feel like I always confused Kant and Jeremy Bentham and like in like what they say in terms of like what you ought to do, like the moral good and utilitarianism. But I know that things sometimes like floating around that field, because it tends to be subjective, there is no absolute. Would you agree that thinking like that produces no moral absolute? Because what I see that I ought to do is different from my neighbor. My neighbor may say, okay, I ought to do this because this protects my freedom and my rights. But then someone else might say, actually, no, they might have a different view of that. So would you agree that there's subjectivity there?
Oh, subjectivity and like what you should and shouldn't do. I like absolutely. That's true on literally every view. You know, for example, on every ethical system, it's going to be true that if you want to go to college, that if you want to graduate from college, then you should go to your classes. But the thing that's objective, the thing that's universal, is that everybody has a right to freedom and well-being. That's the objective part of it. I
Do you
agree
believe
that
that?
like goal-based things oftentimes are going to be subjective to you adopting the goal.
Okay, so you said freedom and was it the right to live, did you say?
Freedom and well-being.
Freedom and well-being. Do you believe that that's a objective standard that
Yeah.
everybody holds to?
Oh, everyone holds
Okay.
to, or that everyone ought hold to? I think everyone ought hold to it. That it's inconsistent to not
Uh,
hold to it.
so,
But no, obviously
mm,
people disagree with that, and I would just say that those people are wrong
okay, so you believe that it's an objective standard for you,
for
but
everyone.
it's not. You believe that everyone should have that standard,
Yeah,
so you would view that standard as objective,
yeah.
but you would agree that it's subjective in reality because not everyone sees it that way.
No, that doesn't make like the dumb kid in the back of the classroom can raise his hand and say 2 + 2 is 5. I don't think the fact that some people disagree with a thing means that that thing isn't objective, right? Like 2 + 2 is still 4, even if the entire world believed that it was 5.
I see. So what makes you different to that dumb kid at the back of the
Mhm.
classroom? Like, why can you kind of see that? Oh, like, what's obviously a good thing, like freedom and well-being, obviously a good thing as objective compared to that other person?
It's a great
I
question.
should ask a question now.
Yeah, it's because there's a contradiction in the worldview of anyone who denies it. You're left with the contradiction that agency is both sufficient and insufficient for a right to freedom and well-being. So because the other worldviews are contradictory, that means that my worldview is true.
Do you think that's been true with many examples throughout history where society or the general consensus? Because the biggest thing that I think of is, again, so I've like studied I haven't studied super deep into these things, but like the biggest thing I can think of is like the transatlantic slave
Mhm.
trade. It's the first thing that comes into my mind, kind of thing, where in society there was quite a wide consensus that it actually was moral to hold
Yeah.
slaves. Like there was kind of there were people against it. There was definitely abolitionists and definitely people who weren't abolitionists but still knew it wasn't good. And then there were people that just agreed, and the same kind of thing with segregation. So
Yeah,
I
certainly.
just wonder
Yeah, there certainly were people that believed that it was fine and they were wrong. But I'd be
Mm.
curious. I mean, I don't think that you're going to be able to account for the wrongness of slavery in the Christian worldview. There's not going to be like a Bible verse that says, "Thou ought not own slaves, thou shalt not own slaves." You won't be able to find that one. You would need to borrow secular ethics to arrive at that conclusion.
Biblical slavery that's a very good point. And slavery that took place in biblical times, I know people say it's arguments to cop out and whatnot, but nonetheless, it's the truth I can bring. Slavery that took place in biblical times was very different. In that, especially that like verse and that context in society, was quite different to the kind of slavery that took place in different places of the world or different time periods. Not even necessarily modern time periods, but just different time periods that took place. In that context, slavery is talking about indentured labor.
Oh,
And I feel like you can actually see the example where in the transatlantic slave trade, they actually like twisted the Bible. So slaves would have a slave Bible, and there would be certain things cherry picked and kind of taken out of context. And then also as well, the abolitionists that actually stood up at that time in America. A large majority of his abolitionists actually, from what I believe, from what I've read, again, I'm not like a historian or anything, but they were actually Christian, including Harriet Tubman, actually, who led the slaves out. She was actually Christian, and she was documented to have said that God showed her visions of ways that she could actually escape. So there was supernatural divine intervention in those cases. So I would say that actually looking at it, it's not that argument doesn't really
so
let's
let's get like very clear on this. This is probably just going to be like a definitions dispute. Would you agree that slavery is owning people as property?
I think it's hard. I think that slave labor is paying someone far less that they should be paid, going against the the workload. Typically holding someone against their will as well too. Holding someone against their free will.
Not
Um,
typically. Right.
I would say typically only
Like, I don't
because
think that like a kidnapper is also necessarily like an enslaver. You know, I
I
think that
think
they're
you
a
I think
kidnapper.
if they were, yeah, but an element of it is holding someone against their will. That the whole reason why the transatlantic slave movement as well has a lot of popularity, I guess you could say, is number one, yes, it was horrific, but number two, they couldn't leave. It was
Yeah.
transatlantic. They were
Yeah.
actually taken from their country, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So I think what's the definition that you propose of slavery? Because there's a certain
Yeah.
reason why I added the kept away part. There was a certain reason why I added that. Was it? Did you say not
Yeah,
being
yeah.
paid?
People people who are owned as property.
Yeah,
That's
owned as
what a
property.
slave is. It's just whenever somebody is owned as property. It doesn't matter if like the slave is like brainwashed to the point where they don't want to leave. You know, if they're owned as property, they're a slave.
I would say forced. I would say forced labor. I think it can involve being owned, but I would say forced labor because there's also slavery happening currently right now in I think it's North Africa and some parts also of the Arabian world where there's West African slaves that are actually being imported out, and they're not per se property. It's a work contract, but they're being forced to do stuff under the work contract that's not
Mhm.
there.
But then there
So
are slaves that aren't forced to labor. Like for example, in slavery times in America, if two slaves had a child, that child is also a slave, even if they're not being forced to do labor as like a baby. Like that's still. So it really is just
yeah,
like a person owned as
they're owned as
property.
property, but it's under the context of being forced labor. I understand where you're going with that example, but I think that is unrealistic if we use it. I mean, I feel like it's kind of like semantics, but I feel like it's not. I wouldn't say it goes that far because that baby in the day is expected to complete, like they're expected to complete labor. Like if you're kind of like slaving away at something. If I say, okay, that's a bad example, but if someone say they're slaving away at something, it implies that they're working extremely hard, that they're working laboriously at something to the point where it's almost against their will. So I would put a slave as an indentured laborer. I think most Google definitions would put it as there, but I'm not going to
Is an
refute the fact
indentured
that it's
laborer?
owned by indentured labor. Yeah, I wouldn't refute the fact that ownership is involved. I wouldn't refute your point
Okay,
at all
sure.
about
That's
property.
so. How would we differentiate between like indentured servitude and slavery? I would take the difference to be something like slaves are people owned as property, whereas indentured servants are people who have signed certain rights away in exchange for something in a contract.
Yeah, I think that's like typically what, again, I'm not like a biblical historian scholar, but I think that's typically around the time what a lot of people did, that they would actually even work and they'd be working to like repay a debt or repay something off. So you can see kind of like in the Bible, obviously he's not described as a slave, but there's a character person, whatever you want to call it, who's basically forced to work. He's forced to work for like 14 years to marry a man's daughter. So that's indentured labor. That's labor that's actually been put on him.
Yeah.
Even in biblical times, again, I'm not like a super scholar, but there's something called a Jubilee. Christians say, oh Lord, it's the year of Jubilee, but like it'd come every single 50 years and all of the debts that people had would be repaid off. So the paying off of debts and having debts in society was quite a common thing for that society that was there. So people would actually employ slaves and be like, hey, this is the slavery that, do you know what I mean? That is not the best structure, but that's why I'd point to the indentured labor. And there's people who I'm sure have read a lot more than me who have written it to be indentured labor.
Sure. So let's just read a verse, right? Now that we agree that slavery is going to have like people owned as property, and that's what separates like slavery from indentured servitude, is that, in one you're owned as property. This is Leviticus 25:44-46. As for the male and female slaves whom you may have, it is from the nations around you that you may acquire male and female slaves. You may also acquire them from among the aliens residing with you and from their families who are with you, who have been born in your land. They may be your property. You may keep them as a possession for your children after you, for them to inherit as property. These you may treat as slaves, but as for your fellow Israelites, no one shall rule over the other with harshness. And you might think that, that means that the foreigners can be slaves, but then the Israelites, they can only be indentured servants. You would think that, but you'd be wrong. That's only true of the men. So then we go to the part that you were talking about, the year of Jubilee in Exodus 21. This is 2 through 7.
Yeah.
When you
So
buy
with
a
the last
male
scripture,
Hebrew
sorry.
slave, he shall serve 6 years, but in the 7th he shall go out a free person without debt. If he comes in single, he shall go out single. If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master gives him a wife and she bears him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and she shall go out alone. But if the slave declares, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out a free person, heartwarming, then his master shall bring him before God. He shall be brought to the door or the doorpost, and his master shall pierce his ear with an awl, and he shall serve him for life. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, she shall not go out as the male slaves do. So the only people that got to leave were people who were Israelites and men. The Israelite women didn't get to go. The non-Israelites didn't get to go either. They were just slaves for life.
As in when they're being owned by other Israelites, sorry.
Yeah.
They kind of just had to go and continue to. Is this for Jubilee?
Only the men who are Israelites get to leave during the year of Jubilee. The rest of them are slaves for life.
I
Yeah,
never actually heard that verse,
some
you know.
of the Hebrew men do stay, as it mentioned there.
That's right.
Yeah, if they like are given a wife during their servitude, then they, you know, unless they can either like ditch the wife, but if they really like their family, then they become slave for life. And like even if, you know, they become a slave for life and then like the wife dies, they just stay a slave.
Hmm.
I'd also be curious just while she looks at this, because like the original question, Ian, was like, how do you in the Christian worldview say, you know, slavery is bad, which you're able to do in yours, right, Ian?
Yeah.
But also, like globally, indentured servitude is outlawed. So if the excuse is like, no, it's fine, it's just indentured servitude. How do you say, like, do you think we should, you know, hold a global convention with like, you know, like to try to get servitude back to be allowed? Because like in the Bible, that's totally fine. There's lots of stuff that's like not biblical that are like terrible things, like bad practices that we should get rid of, even though the Bible endorses them. Slavery is one of them, but like so's indentured servitude. So it kind of seems like pointless to make the distinction here.
Like an indention convention?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sure, I'm tracking.
It wouldn't be too long, but because like you have to be able to like hold everyone's attention, and I know retention's low, but we could like make it work, you know.
Sure, I see.
I feel like in their society, that was probably the best way that they could think to repay debts. One of the best ways.
What? Well, then, if that's a good way to repay debts, then why don't we do that?
I didn't say the good way. I said it's probably one of the best ways they could probably think. Probably didn't have things like banks and other things.
It's worth pointing out, this is the law from the omniscient, all good God. So it's not just that the society came up with it in the Christian view. Obviously, that's like is true. But if Christianity is true, this is from the best mind that ever still exists. So probably could have done better.
I don't think it's a case of God prescribing like, hey, let's all fix this, I don't know, fiscal, like monetary policy with what's going on. I think that it's God stepping in and walking with humanity and walking with the structure of how humanity works.
Well,
So at that point, they wanted it.
That's kind of like exactly what he's doing, right? He's saying, here are the laws, you can do this.
I think he's looking at what they, because it was a thing already. Like it wasn't like I'm going to create, it's because it seems to me when I read it, like it wasn't a thing that never existed. It was already happening in society.
Happening
So he's
for
grabbing the
who?
way
Happening for the Israelites?
for all the nations at the time.
But the Israelites weren't a nation yet, though. You know, in fact, they had just exited slavery. I actually think that God really squandered a good opportunity. You know, God could have given like a really moving speech about like empathy and about, you know, you all were just slaves in Egypt and I have freed you from this. Now recognize this fundamental truth that you are all made in the image of God. Nobody made in the image of God deserves to be a slave. Therefore, you will not own slaves yourself.
I think they were a nation at the time in Leviticus. I think they were a nation because they were living amongst Egypt, who were like another, like whether you want to go into
They were
the
wandering the desert,
whether
I
it was
think.
So
when-
they were
when they
like
go
a
into the politics,
people
wherever they
group,
were.
but they didn't have like a place yet, so they weren't a nation. So
Oh,
this,
that's
like, by the way, Exodus 21 where the one about like the girls don't get to go free. Exodus 20 is the 10 commandments. Like this is really early, and it's right when God is like, here's the new rules for the new people. Idols, you may not. Now back then they were worshiping idols. That was in their society. That was something they did, and he put a like hard no. And then with slavery, that's something else they're doing. And he says, well, here's how to do that best.
Is the way that I think I think, I don't know if it's you guys' frame, but I think it can sound from the outside like, okay, God is mandating this special kind of labor and work for Israel, for the Israelites. In the meantime, this people group, there would have been many other nations who was also practicing in this exact way. This would have been the way that society was actually working and going around. And again, like there was different levels again, as there's slavery with brute force, there's this, there's that.
It's all bad.
There's indentured labor, which is signing a contract, which even Britain did until the 18th century.
Which is horrible, right?
It was
Great
legally
example of a
recognized.
horrible nation doing
Again,
something
it's a-
awful.
It's a thing of actually paying off debts, paying off money, and the way that they were able to regulate their society at the time.
And you would agree that that was like terrible, right?
There's obviously not a fun way to work if you have to work for 7 years because your father couldn't like pay off an amount of money, so you don't really have a career, you know, or a job or anything like that. Like it's obviously not something that someone will wake up and be like, hey, I got to work the field
So-
again or work something again. Like if that's the way that their society regimented things and it interacts with people, I don't see how that's like the
Oh,
Christian
I
God
see.
mandating.
That makes
Do you
sense.
get
So
what I
your
mean? I don't-
ethics derive from like a society. So society determines the Christian ethic.
I wouldn't say society determines Christian ethic, but I'd say that God,
I guess I'm a bit
he-
confused about what you're
he
saying then.
walks. That's okay. He walks with the way that society is going. If they're doing something that is abysmal and like an absolute abomination, you will see in the Bible that God will correct them. However, if it's a practice that is not even just practice at the time, but it's generally seen as a fair way, and it's a fairer way to do it. He's not saying beat your slaves or throw them into a cage or be horrible to them. He's saying that if you have a debt of 7 years and you can't pay off that debt, and labor back then was how their society ran, then you do it just in the way that if I do a Klarna
Ian already
order,
made that distinction, Beth. He said, for the indentured servants, don't treat them bad like the slaves, but for the slaves, you can do that.
I'm a bit nervous because it actually
I-
does say that you can beat them. It says when a slave owner strikes a male or female slave with a rod and the slave dies immediately, the owner shall be punished. But if the slave survives a day or two, there's no punishment, for the slave is the owner's property. It kind of sounds like God is saying, like pretty explicitly, that you can beat the heck out of your slave with a rod, and as long as they don't die, then you're fine.
I would hope not. I don't know if I'm being choosy here, but I'd hope that's a narrow reading of the text.
It's Exodus 21, 20 through 21.
That's what mine says too. I double checked, so yeah, it's
Is it
pretty
20
pretty
verse
spot on.
then?
Maybe it's a translation issue. Let me switch over to. Guess, do you have like a preferred version of the Bible?
I use the holy.
Oh,
Bible.
sure. That makes sense, right? It is
I
like
will just. Is it chapters 20 and 21? Because I typically when
Exodus
I read
21, 20 through 21. Chapter is
Okay.
21, and then verses are 20 through 21.
Thank you so much. I typically just tend to use NKJV when I read it. But... I
Do you
guess it's
think?
just a- Oh, go on. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna ask Meso whether or not he thinks that the other Bibles are like less holy.
If it doesn't say it on the cover, like if it just says Bible, that's really sketchy.
I agree with that.
As long as it says Holy Bible, then it's a good one. And preferably it has maps in the back. If there's no maps in the back, that's a little sketchy too.
Well, I mean, I don't know. And this is like, you know, whenever I'm like reading through my Bible, I always like turning to like the little maps. You know, I get a couple words in, and it's map time.
Yeah, you can like trace out little lines on it, you know, have a little, it's like a maze.
Yeah.
Mine are in color.
Are they? What? Oh, God, I'm so stupid. I was gonna ask what version of the Bible you have.
Yeah, it's the Holy Bible. That's why I'm telling you, it's a really good one. This wasn't cheap.
It's the Holy Bible.
Okay, guys. Well, I have to say that honestly, you guys have given me something to think about generally and actually read. I don't think I've actually seen those two verses, 20 and 21, in deep context. So honestly, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Obviously, I
no,
still
it's
read
totally
it,
I would
fine.
read
but I
all of
still
chapter 21 because it's really fucking brutal. Like, it's really devastating for the idea that God gives good laws. And it's also just like the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
no, honestly, thank you so much. Because I wouldn't want to come into a conversation that's like, what about slavery? And I just don't have anything to say, or like I haven't studied the scriptures. So thank you, honestly.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you for patience. I'm literally gonna go and like actually go off and generally study this.
Hey,
So I don't
absolutely.
have anything else to contribute to today's debate, but thank you so much for having me on.
Hey, thanks so much for coming on up. I appreciate it. Wow, I wish my Bible was holy. Fuck.
What'd you get? The shitty Bible?
Yeah, I got the new revised shitty version, updated edition.
Oh, they updated the shitty one? They should
Yeah.
stop updating that.
It's,
People are
I
going to
should
keep
stop
buying it.
buying it, right? That's my
Yeah.
bad. You
That's
know.
your fault. It says on the cover.
Yeah, I don't know. Gosh, there are no maps in it either. That's how you know.
Oh my God. What a waste. You've been swindled.
I know. You're welcome to stay up here as we go to the next guest.
I'll do one more.
Yeah, this guy's name is Christ is King. Hey, how's it
Yo, what's
going?
Hello, do you hear me?
Yeah, how old are you?
Yeah, 25.
And what religion? I'm sorry, that was a dumb
Christ-
question. Your name is Christ is King.
Yeah.
What
Nah, I'm
a-
a Muslim, man.
Sure. What makes you think that God exists?
Yeah, a bunch of different reasons, I guess. But I would like to discuss the topic of Kalam.
The Kalam, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that? Actually, do you want to lay out the argument?
Well, yeah, it's essentially everything that begins as a cause.
Mhm.
The universe began, so it's has a cause.
Yeah.
And that cause itself can't be, since the universe contains all the materia, time, and with the space, the cause itself has to be timeless, spaceless, and immaterial.
Okay. Do you think God's act of creation is eternal, or do you think God's act of creation begins to exist?
God, like in what sense? I mean,
Do you think God's act of creation, like when he's exercising his causal powers, he's exercising his power of creation, do you think that act wherein God necessitates creation into existence, do you think his act begins to exist, or do you think that it always existed?
I mean, I think God is creation, so he always, creates.
Sure, then creation always exists. Because
Yeah,
God
yeah, sure.
eternally created, well, then the universe doesn't begin to exist.
But then, like, how do you explain the Big Bang, for example?
Well, wait, can we just acknowledge that like we kind of arrived at like a self-defeat in the Kalam, that it seems like the Kalam is kind of self-defeating, that if God is like the eternal creator, then the universe just eternally exists, and then the Kalam is just false. I mean, at that point, we could accept the Kalam and then reason to the conclusion that God doesn't exist, because if God existed, the universe wouldn't begin to exist.
I don't think that's necessarily true, actually. I mean, God can exist eternally, but then create the universe. So I mean, if I snap my fingers, for example, that's sort of how I look at it. Like the sound. Would you say that the sound from snapping my fingers comes like instantaneously?
Not instantaneously, right? It takes time for it to travel, but so okay, wait, we could formalize the anti-Kulam like this. Oh damn. Oh beans. I went to the wrong one. We could formalize it like this. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. If God exists, then the universe doesn't begin to exist. Or sorry, the opposite. Therefore, God doesn't exist.
Phew, close one.
It was a close one.
So this is the Malaks?
Yeah, it is the Malak.
I do Laxap's wager. That's why I recognized this one.
Everyone will be running the Malak soon. So, okay, maybe I could even probably expand on this premise. If God exists, then he is eternally creating the universe. If God is eternally creating the universe, then the universe doesn't begin to exist. Therefore, God doesn't exist. It seems like the Kalam became an argument against God's existence.
No, but how where do you get like the universe from then? Like is the universe as a brute fact?
Well, wait, which premise here do you disagree with before we move on?
Hold up. So everything that begins to exist as a cause, I agree with that. The universe begins to exist, I agree with that. If God exists, then he is eternally creating the universe. I mean, like, what do you mean with that he's eternally, like, continuously creating the universe?
That his active creation doesn't begin to exist, that it always existed.
Wait, could you repeat that?
That God's active creation doesn't begin to exist. That in the same way God is eternal, that God's creating the universe is also eternal.
Yeah, but like I still don't get why.
Like, he didn't
if God continuously creates, because it sort of seems like you are saying that the universe itself is all of God's creation. I mean, God, the idea can exist in the mind, for example, before it becomes reality. So I don't see why necessarily, if God was always creating, that would automatically means that the universe came with like the first act of creation itself.
Oh, sure. You're
like
saying like God creates like an infinite regress of universes?
No, I mean like the idea of the universe, like say for example, like the math and logic and stuff like that. I mean the properties of the universe must be thought of before the universe can actually exist. So I don't know why. Yeah.
So then, do you think that God's active creation then began to exist?
Yeah, I guess it did then.
So then it would require a cause.
Yeah.
So then God doesn't stop the infinite regress.
I mean, but he wouldn't necessarily stop the infinite regress.
So,
because I mean, like, because what I don't get with like the whole, universe as a brute thing, where that it eternally
I think you run into like a bit of a different problem here, which is you think God is timeless. So if God exists, then he is timeless. If God is timeless, then he doesn't change. If God's active creation begins to exist, then God changes from not creating to creating. So, therefore, we would arrive at the conclusion that God doesn't exist, just on that basis.
Oh, wait, hold on, let me reread it.
Yeah. Or maybe, sorry, let me, if God's active creation begins to exist, then God doesn't exist would be the proper inference.
No, but like I don't see the conclusion. I mean, if God, for example, is eternal, because when I look at the universe, like I don't see why, for example, how it could be a brute fact.
Well, wait, before we get to explaining this, I mean, which would you reject between 1, 2, and 3 here?
I mean, I just don't see it like. I suppose it's 3 in that case.
Okay, that if God's act of creation begins to, so you think that God, you don't think like when you go from exercising your causal power, you think that
Oh wait,
God
sorry,
could
sorry.
be
Yeah, I think it's two.
too, that if
Yeah.
God is timeless, then he doesn't change?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, this one's pretty simple. I guess I'll throw that one. If something changes, then there is a before moment and an after moment in its life. Maybe if you have a before moment and an after moment in your life, then you are in time. Therefore, if something changes, then it is in time.
I mean, yeah, I suppose.
Okay, sure. So then you would agree that if God's timeless, then he doesn't change. Because if something changes, then it would be in time.
Yeah, that might be true. Yeah.
Sure. Well, then it just seems like we're left with the conclusion that, I mean, you know, either God's act of creation is eternal, you know, it doesn't begin to exist. And then we're left with the conclusion that God doesn't exist just based on the Kalam, or God's act of creation does begin to exist, in which case God doesn't exist. So it kind of seems like either way, God doesn't exist.
Christ, try rejecting the
like
first one. Just see what happens. Just give it a shot. Go say, I don't accept one. Just try something.
Wait, what did you say?
Try to reject the first one. Just see what happens. It might work.
Yeah, maybe that's the way out.
Yeah, but like, because the thing I don't see, even if you say that God doesn't exist, for example, like how come then that our current space-time does exist? Because if we go by the same metric, for example, I mean, like for example, in the Big Bang, right? Because the way I understand it, we started with like some sort of singularity, right? That
Not
thing
quite.
that expanded.
Not quite.
Right.
I think that was a great move, though. So you accept that God doesn't exist, and then we can kind of try to figure out how the universe is here. I think that's a solid move, to be honest.
Yeah, because I mean, when I look at the universe and how we started, I don't really see how that's possible, like in its own sort of, like in a vacuum, you know?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things. So first of all, it's not clear that the universe does begin to exist. It could have just always existed. Mezzo, did you ever get the graphic figured out? My situation for the graphic of like the new study is whack. I have to use the old study. I haven't upgraded my study yet. Damn it. Oh, yeah, I should totally just make up data next time. I should totally just make the data up. That's my bad. Yeah, it's I'm staring at it now on my YouTube. It's 1,600 people. Okay, sure, but according to the majority of cosmologists, the Big Bang is a theory that says that the universe evolved from a hot dense state that says nothing about whether there was an absolute beginning of time or not. The Big Bang doesn't claim to be the beginning of time.
Yeah, but it's like according to our our standard cosmological model, that's how far back we can date it at least. We can't really go beyond the Big Bang, so that's like our current working theory.
But Christ, if you can't go beyond it and we don't know, then why are you saying that the answer must be God? Like, if we don't know, then we should leave it we don't know instead of saying, therefore, it's the thing I want it to be from the book that ancient people wrote.
Yeah, but like we are, because when I'm looking at the like alternatives or what I've heard, like nothing of it really makes any sense to me. I mean, we can you know, we have an infinite regress, for example, which I think is like nonsense.
Why?
And you also have the cyclical model, which I also don't think works because of, is it the second law of thermodynamics that you know, states that eventually we just don't have any energy left?
Sorry. So In the big bounce, big crunch, and like the cyclical model,
Yeah,
there's going to be like a reversal of entropy.
a reversal of entropy.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you walk me through that?
Yeah. So entropy is just about like a ratio of like, okay, there's a lot of ways that rice could be. Like, let's say I took like a bowl of rice and I just threw it on the ground. There's so many ways that this rice could be disorganized looking. There's so many ways that it could look like totally random. There's only one way that it could look like a portrait of, I don't know,
Me?
yeah, Mezzo. There's only one. There's like a couple of ways that it could look like a portrait of Mezzo. That's kind of what entropy is describing, is just how many, based on the way that it looks, how many possible ways could you arrive at this configuration at the level of like the individual things that are arranged. That's kind of what entropy is describing. And of course, there's going to be fewer possible states if the universe is like collapsing down into like a really hot dense state again.
That's called Eportene, just for future reference.
Eportene?
Yeah, just like the reverse of the Kalam was Malak's reverse entropy. Some scientists are calling it Eportene. I don't know. I've heard that.
That seems plausible to me. And in fact, as somebody who has scientists who are friends, I'm getting confirmation right now that
Oh, really?
it is called
Okay.
that. Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Okay, well, I don't know. I'm just like between all the alternatives, and not because when it comes down to it, right? It's sort of a version of like Pascal's wager, I guess, with like, because if it is about my soul, and I'm looking at all these things, and I don't really buy any of the other alternatives, and I'm looking at God, and I think it's like the best explanation for why there is something rather than nothing. I don't really see why I should do away with the God explanation in favor of an explanation that I think is weaker or
Because it failed.
like
though.
at best
Remember,
on the same.
remember you tried to do it and it had a contradiction. So like we don't know for sure which one it is, maybe, but we can start ruling out the ones that have like complete contradictions. We know it wasn't a married bachelor that made the universe, right? Like we can start to kind of rule some of these out. And if God has a contradiction, that one's gone. Now let's look at the other things. Maybe there's a reverse entropy. Maybe it could be a number of different things, but don't
Yeah.
claim that it's going to be something impossible.
Yeah, maybe it's laxap.
Right.
But okay, but yeah, because when I look at it, it's not only. I mean, even if you do away with God, for example, how will we then explain all of the like spiritual stuff, like for example the consciousness and stuff like that? And we
Like
also
consciousness?
it's so. Yeah, I mean, it seems to be, for example, like I can. It seems that we can project on some level our intent onto others. Like for example, when you
before we
Wait.
pivot to consciousness, I'm sure you want to do it, but I just got to let you know, and Ian, you don't know this about me, but I'm a Western Orthodox atheist. I was born and raised in a Western Orthodox atheist. So we do hold to that the universe just spawned randomly and spontaneously out of nothingness. And of course, since nothing is timeless because it doesn't have time, it is eternally the case that nothingness can't exist. And so therefore it's constantly creating the universe, forcing the universe to exist logically. So there's a lot of different possibilities, and I just wanted to let you know, Christ, that there's other options out there. Now you can do your consciousness.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, for example, like when you know who's calling you on the phone, for example, but you have no reason to actually believe that it's that particular person calling. When you know, for example, someone is like looking at you from behind, and you turn around and you see that something, or that someone actually is looking at you. I mean, stuff like that doesn't really make sense just on by itself, right?
Oh, I mean, it kind of does, right? You know, there's good survival. You might even say that there's like good survival reproduction reasons that your eyes would be tuned to detect shadows in that way, or would be, like, I don't know. I was standing in the elevator. I was leaving work one day, and then there was like this dude who, for some fucking okay, picture this was psychotic. Picture this. I'm standing right here this is me, this is him. And then he like goes like up like behind me. And I'm like, my brain is like fucking panicking. Like, I don't know. There's a good reason to be like very attuned to that sort of thing.
Ian, I told you, I thought there was other people coming into the elevator on the next floor. I was trying to make room for who might be showing up. That's perfectly fine to do. I was making space in advance. Stop bringing it up.
I just think it was kind of weird, right? And it freaked me out. I'm still freaked out by it. I don't know if you just want me to leave it, set it aside.
Just stop bringing it up in the debate.
I can't do that. It's not gonna happen.
Just talk to me about it in our next
Okay,
elevator ride.
okay. I'll DM it to you.
I'll get real
generate
close to you
some
in the
DMs.
elevator. We can have a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know, man. I just because I still don't think that, in my mind at least, there's like too many holes that I mean, God is not. I don't know. I think it's leaves like when you remove God, it leaves sort of an incomplete picture of reality, and it doesn't seem that it's just because you use God to fill the gap. It just seems that there is like a God-shaped hole, and he seems to sort of just fit in there.
God is hole-shaped. That's true. Look at Jesus's hands.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I think that atheism is quite capable of filling many holes. I think you'll come to find. But like, what sort of holes do you think only God could fill?
I mean, for example, morality is one of them, right?
Oh,
the classic example.
Well, I don't think that God is able to fill that very well. I don't think that we have any reason to do what God tells us to unless we subjectively decide to. Like, let's say God says, go and slaughter this group of people, and you're reflecting, you're like, well, why ought I do that? What if you don't want to go and slaughter this group of people? Like, why ought you?
Yeah, but we don't need to specifically do the Christian
But
God
just
stuff,
any
right? We
like
just do
this is true for any
if you-
moral principle that God asks you to do. Like, why ought you do that?
Yeah, but if I, for example, you bring this up now, right? Like that, it would be bad murdering someone, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, but if you question that, like the question itself, doesn't that also sort of what you call it? I mean, it begs the question, like we do it. It presupposes that there is a correct answer to whether it is all right to murder someone or if it's not.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. That you can ask, like, is there a right answer to doing this? Or like, if you ask the question, is murder acceptable? Then that does presuppose that there's a right answer. What I'm telling you is, I don't think God can fill that hole. Let's say God tells you don't murder. Why does it follow from that you ought not murder?
Yeah, no, it's more like we know that it's wrong to murder. So then, but what I'm
How
saying
would
is that
God
if we
explain
remove,
that?
yeah, but if we remove God, how do we explain that still?
But how do you
Because
explain
now
that
we
with
have
God?
Because it's the only way to standardize morality is by
A God might love murder.
but then it wouldn't be universally sort of
would
frowned
be-
upon.
It would be good to do it. We'd all just be wrong for not murdering. There's like no way we don't have access to God's mind, right?
Lapsack's going to torture the shit out of us.
I mean, according to Christianity, the law is written on our hearts.
Oh,
Yes,
but
you
people
don't
disagree
prove-
widely about morality. That can't be true. People disagree about their moral intuitions, especially historically. A lot of people
Yeah,
thought
but-
slavery was like totally fine. It doesn't seem like it was written on their hearts at all.
Yeah, but that's what I mean, because since we disagree, it still supposes that there is a correct answer to be found in all of this.
But then
And,
it's not written on our hearts if we disagree.
Yeah, I mean, people also have free will. So that's part of it. I mean, when I want to do something, right? Even if I know it's wrong, I mean, I can find a bunch of reasons to still do it. All of a sudden, I'm a mastermind. at
It doesn't.
finding
It doesn't seem like the
excuses.
Romans thought that it was wrong. It doesn't seem like Aristotle and Plato thought that it was wrong. They went to like pretty shocking lengths to argue in favor of slavery.
I mean, yeah, you can do it. I mean, But were they wrong to do that?
I think so. I don't think the Bible is able to account for why.
Yeah, but no, I'm not saying the Bible specifically. But if you think like that they were wrong, like I mean, you in this world, right, where we remove God, it's not like you're actually right. It's just like a preference that we probably shouldn't.
In
be
the
doing
world where you
slavery.
have God, there's no reason to think that it would be wrong. I think that whether or not morals are objective is kind of totally independent of God's existence. I think that even if morals are objective and God exists, they're not going to be objective because God plays any role there. And if they're subjective, then God existing wouldn't make them not subjective.
Yeah, I mean, in order for morality to be objective, it needs to be, grounded on something that transcends our own subjectivity.
But let's say God commands me to not murder. Why then ought I not murder? Like, what reason would I have to not do it?
I mean, for example, right, in Christianity. So if we just play with like the theoretical that, okay, we have arrived at, we need the God to find morality, for example, then I would point you obviously towards Christianity, where
well, that's
would
the
then
thing in
suggest that-
question. I'm challenging that we need God for this. I'm trying to figure
Yeah,
out,
exactly.
like, let's say God exists and he's
Yeah.
commanded that I can't murder or that I shouldn't murder. Why
Yeah.
does that make it true that I shouldn't murder? Like, why ought I not? What reason would I have to not do that?
Because we are then created with a purpose to love God and to love each other, and since we are created with a purpose that is, above whatever.
Why ought I do what God
subjective,
created me
yeah,
for?
but because it's the only way to sort of ground why you would would or would not do something at all, unless you want to ground it on
Why
your own
ought I ground
subjectivity.
something?
But then we
Well, like, why ought I ground that? Why is that a thing that I ought ground?
wait. Now you lost me. Why you ought?
Well,
not
yeah,
to
why
ground what?
ought I ground like some sort of objective standard? Why ought I?
Because we need to have a functioning society. We need to.
Sure. So then you appeal to society. So then the atheist can make like an identical move. They can say, well, don't rape because if you rape, we won't have a functioning society. So by this logic, the atheist has easy objective morality.
Yeah, but it's more than just society. Like I can reject society if I want. I don't need to follow like the societal norms if I don't want. But then the problem becomes that by doing that, I am not doing anything wrong in that. I'm just following whatever I want to do, and I'm totally
can I
correct
ask it
in
this way?
whatever it is that may be.
Can I say it this way? Like, we know that stealing will make society like shittier, right? Like, people won't feel safe in their like possessions, and their loved ones might get stuff ripped out from them, and it's gonna like make society worse if everybody steals. So we have like an argument for like social reasons about that. And then God also says, "Thou shalt not steal." But why is stealing bad to God? Like, why does God think stealing is bad?
Because in His eyes, we are all valued. And when you steal something, like if you stole something from me, that is you devaluing my worth as a human being.
He values like
because you don't think
material
that I am-
possessions.
No, He values me as a being, and
Yeah, but if I steal
my
your TV,
own
the
rights.
TV isn't part of you, right?
Yeah, no, but I am an independent human being, and that's about respect and boundaries, sort of. Like you
But why
need to
does he
respect
want
my
us
thing,
to respect each other?
because He calls us to love God and to love each other
Yeah, but for what reason? Like, how does he ground his morals?
by being perfect.
Oh gosh,
Should have
he's
thought of
just.
that.
Oh yeah, okay, sure. But I mean, in order to be perfect, he would need to be moral. So, okay, so the fact that he's moral explains the fact that he's perfect, and the fact that he's perfect explains the fact that he's moral.
No, that's not what I said. If you are like my view of morality, right? It's not like I don't think it's a very typical view of it. I don't view morality as just sort of it's an emergent property from freedom, for example. It's more like an sort of Buddhist teaching, right? Like if you were inspired, I don't know what to say, but if you are, because I view it like this, right? Bad actions are those arise from however corrupted you may be in your pursuits or your goals, desires. Like for example, anger leads you to do irrational things.
Mm-hmm.
and the rationality can't lead to something good, essentially. So, and I mean, if you're perfectly free, then you're perfectly free to not do something immoral. Like the whatever immoral thing I might do, if I murder someone, that's born out of hatred or jealousy or something like that. Like I want to murder someone because I'm in love, like because I'm happy with them or something like that. Like if I'm perfectly free, then I'm perfectly free to forgo my desires. But if I'm, imprisoned by my desires, I become a slave to them, and I am forced to follow my like my lowest instincts.
Wow, that's that certainly is interesting. But I mean, I guess like related to the God topic, do you think that God commands the things that he does and that's because those things are good? Or do you think that the things that God commands are good because God commanded them? Like, what do you think explains what? Do you think the explanatory chain is like, well, there are these good things independent of God, and then they explain the fact because God's all good and he knows these things, then that explains the fact that God gives the command, which then explains the fact that they're good? Or do you think that it's like the reverse, that God gives the command and that then explains the fact that they're good? Like, because God gave the command, that makes them good? Like, which one do you think that it is?
That's the what's it called?
The
whatever
Euthyphro.
dilemma. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because that's how I came to this idea. Because when I thought of that, I thought that this sort of destroys the whole like perfect nature or the perfectly good nature of God, for example. And if it was good, that couldn't, or if it was perfectly good, that wouldn't be possible. So I started thinking about this, right? And so that's why I think like morality isn't decided by God in such a way that he has arbitrarily chooses it, or that it exists outside of God. More that it's an emergent property that flows through him because he is perfectly free.
What does that mean?
It's his because he, for example, right? Now it kind of goes back to the Kalam. But if he created everything, then that means that he is self-fulfilled within himself, because everything is in him and he's not in need of anything.
Creators can be
he can't
evil.
be.
I don't know the correlation there.
Yeah, because like if he's perfectly free to do whatever he wants, then he is maximally free. And since he's maximally free, there's no way for him to sort of be corrupted, right? Like his needs or his what you call it. He basically is. He doesn't do stuff out of like a corrupted nature or corrupted desires, because since he's completely free, he has the.
I have no idea
I'm sorry,
which answer this is. I just want to know what explains what. Like, what explains the fact that it's good?
I think the original urethra dilemma was about like, if God pisses on you, is that morally good because he's doing it, or is it because he commanded piss to happen? Like, he said, "Let there be water."
Maybe he does it because it's good, or maybe God just is piss.
Could be
a lot of ways to diffuse the dilemma.
He had to go off the app to search that.
Hey, listen, guest, if you're off the app, if you're searching it up, that might be something to do on your own time.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm new to TikTok. I didn't know that you couldn't hear me.
That's okay.
Yeah. Sorry, because I wrote it down in my notes like a pretty long time ago. Would it be alright if I took like 10 seconds just to find the quote?
Sure, go for it.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right, well, I guess I'll take that time to say goodbye and step down. I got some stuff I got to do, but thanks for having me, old buddy.
Hey, thanks so much for coming on up. Appreciate you.
Yep. See you in the elevator.
I hope not. Not after last time. Let me read some supers. Oh, I guess not. Sorry, Molly, I'm evil. Okay, yeah, go for it.
So basically, God is good because perfect freedom naturally produces good.
What is that? Wait, sorry. Why does God being able to do anything mean that he's just naturally going to be good? Why would that follow? Why couldn't a God who can do anything, I don't know, like rape babies or something?
Because like, for example, right? What you say?
Like, okay, why couldn't, if God's perfectly free, why couldn't he
Yeah.
then do like a ton of murders or something?
Because like if you are, for example, a murderer,
Mhm.
then you do those actions because you're not free to do anything else.
That's like obviously false, right? Like I think that Ted Bundy was free to do other things.
I don't think he was. If he had the freedom to forgo those desires, then he would have chosen not to do that. Like when you commit evil acts, it's because you don't have the freedom to do anything else. You don't have the you don't have your free will at that point.
And when you speak of freedom, do you just mean like capability?
So with freedom, I mean that freedom of choice.
Okay, but do you mean like capability? Like you have the capability to do it?
No, I mean, for example, I am capable of murdering someone, but I am free enough in my choices that
Do you-
I am not bound to do that. Like even if I, for example, were to like start hating someone, I am not a slave to my desires, a slave to my like deepest instincts. So I can just forgo that and choose not to like become like an animal. Do you understand?
Okay. Well, but then I mean this goes back I mean well, because I hold to determinism and I don't think that takes away more responsibility, so maybe it's fine. But do you think it's possible for God to, I don't know, like do a ton of murders?
I don't actually like within this model, right? It wouldn't really be possible because
Oh, it sounds like he's not
'cause
free.
I mean so that's the thing, right? When you are maximally free, you wouldn't choose a bad action.
Okay, but is it possible for him to do that?
I mean it's like it's technically he can do like whatever you can think of because it's
Mhm.
God, right? This is it's his world. It's just that it's in his nature, right, to be perfect, and since he is perfect, no bad action could flow from that.
Oh, well then he's not perfectly free. He doesn't have like the freedom to choose evil.
No, but it's actually in the reverse because you're thinking of morality as being something separate. I'm thinking of morality as being an emergent property from your level of freedom.
No, I understand that, but you're saying that God, okay, wait, does God have the freedom to, I don't know, like murder a bunch of people?
I mean, he has the freedom, but
Okay,
he
so-
would but he wouldn't do that because of like his freedom of choice, because he is maximally free in his like
Okay.
will.
So God can do that.
I mean, I guess, but it's
Okay. If God did
it's
it, would it
more
be
like-
good?
no.
Oh.
That's why he that's why he wouldn't do it, you know.
Okay, sure. So then not everything God, it's possible for God to do something that isn't good.
I mean, it's possible for everyone to do something that isn't good. I'm just saying it's not in God's nature to be good.
Yeah, but then we just have this contradiction on our hands, that it's possible for God to do evil, but God, by his very essence, can't do evil.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's possible for God to do something that goes against his essence.
I mean, no, but I don't know. Maybe I spoke too soon. Because I don't what I'm trying to say essentially is that doing bad things is more like within human nature, because we're still bound to like this. We have our needs. We need like, for example, I think eating, the desire to eat food, like the need for food, the need for substance, and the need for sex, and the need for what do you call it? Yeah, whatever, is also a form of evil. So if we were maximally free, we wouldn't need to eat, for example.
God is essentially morally perfect. Let me formalize this. So, okay. God is essentially morally perfect. If God is essentially morally perfect, then God is necessarily morally perfect. Doing evil is not morally perfect. These four entail a contradiction, that it would be both. It would be possible for God to do something that he cannot do because he's necessarily morally perfect. If it's possible for God to do evil, then he would be not necessarily morally perfect.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I walk back, so I disagree with like the first
Okay,
premise.
then God's not free.
I mean, that's why he's yeah, that's why he can't do evil.
That's not free then. He's not free to do evil.
But I mean, look at it like if you, for example, let's do it in reverse. So if you have someone that is completely trapped, right? Someone is completely enslaved to their desires and to their instincts, and you know, whatever they might just think they want to do on a whim. That would, for example, be the maximally most evil person, because that would be the maximally enslaved person to their own sort of ego, you might say.
Well, but I mean, you could run this in reverse, right? You could say, you know, imagine God creates somebody who, by their very essence, is morally perfect and they can only choose the morally good action. Well, this would be a person who's free but can only do good.
Wait, could you repeat that?
Yeah, God could create somebody who's essentially morally perfect, where literally by their very essence, they can only do good. And then that person could only do good.
Yeah, sure.
But, I mean, would you say that they're free?
I mean, like they would be. So if God gave them like maximal freedom, they would not do evil.
Okay,
So, like,
but like, what if
the property of being like maximally good comes from their you know, essence of being maximally free.
That's the thing that I'm challenging. They're not maximally free if they can't do evil.
I mean, I don't really. They have the capability of doing evil acts. It's just that it's not going to like arise as an idea in their head if they are
Yeah.
maximally free.
Yeah, but it's either possible for them to do it or it's not possible. If it's not possible, then they don't have the capability. And if
Man,
it
I
is
don't know, man.
possible, then they're not necessarily morally good.
I mean, I wrote this down a long time ago. I believe I might be able to, or actually I might just have to like think about it some more.
Yeah, well,
But,
hey,
yeah,
I probably have
yeah.
to wrap things up, but I appreciate you coming on up here. It was a chill convo. Grimlock, thanks so much for the super chat. Oh, also, wait, sorry. I'm releasing a new video. It's published on my YouTube channel. It's titled "Ignorant Christians Say Their God is Too Weak to Cure Cancer." Yeah, except for Psalm 145:9, where it says, "The Lord is good to all." You know, he has compassion on all he has made.
That doesn't mean he can fix everything. That doesn't mean kids aren't going to die of
Do
cancer.
you want me to find you the verse that says that all is possible through God?
All is possible, but doesn't mean that he said
That
he's
means
gonna
that he
do it.
can that he can fix all of cancer.
save a million
Is it
lives.
possible to
I'm a
fix all
nurse,
of
but I can
cancer? Is
save-
that possible?
I'm a nurse, but I can save a million lives, but does mean I'm going to get the chance, or I can, or I will, or have the capacity? No.
Is it possible
So
for
usually
God
that's
to
why you
will
don't
all of
believe in
cancer out of
God.
existence?
That's not the right reason. You have to come
Wait.
up with a stronger reason. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Your God sounds weak as fuck. I got to be honest with
Yeah,
you.
he may be.
You said you're Christian? Based. W. Grimlock, thanks so much for the super chat. Let's not forget indentured servitude doesn't specify that the one who owes the debt is the one being sold to pay for that. That is pretty crazy, right? That's pretty insane. I mean, like, you know, indentured servitude is wild, but selling somebody else to pay off your debts, unspeakably evil. Narcissa, thanks so much for the super chat. Beth would do horrible things in a heartbeat. Yep. Every divine command theorist is one hallucination away from killing their own kids and thinking that they did a good thing. Christopher Sanford, thanks so much for the super chat. Blah, 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 blah. Thanks so much for the super chat. I don't like to use the phrase, but this amount of confident ignorance about biblical slavery is just flat out brainwashed. Frank Turdek, I guess. W. Frank Turdek. That's funny. I like that. Thanks, Christopher. I appreciate that. Big W to you. Victor, thanks so much for the super chat. Does the caller think it's fair being sold by her father or paying debts through slavery? That's a good question. Probably not. Level your mind. Thanks so much for the fuck. I can't pronounce words. Thanks so much for the super chat. Magnificent Mary subscription. That's incredible. Thank you for inspiring me to maintain a temperate and rational disposition, a skill that I can apply in every day. I'm deeply grateful for the work that you do. Hey, thank you so much, Level Your Minds. I think that logic is important. I think that being able to rationally disagree with people is important. I think that if you're wrong about your beliefs, then you should change them. And logic is a great tool for doing that. So you should never be afraid to be rational, calm, and logical with people who are good faith. It's the bad faith people who should watch out. Victor, thanks so much for the super chat. The Cool Core membership, I appreciate that. Coffee, college, thanks so much for the super chat. I found proof that he's real. My dog farted yesterday, and I think he farted out the Holy Spirit because it smelled like shit and disappointment. Sounds like it. Sounds about right. Okay, go check out my newest YouTube video. I think Justin's probably also live if I have his schedule down. We will see. We will see. Yeah, Justin's live. You can go give Justin a raid. Anyway, love all of you. It's been a blast. Join the book club. You better join the damn book club. Otherwise,